Training for your next big race and not sure about your nutrition? Well, Precision Fuel and Hydration are sponsoring the show this month, and their free online planner has you covered. It calculates exactly how much carbs, sodium and fluid you need to smash your goals. Me and the team at Inside Running Podcast swear by the 90-gram resealable gel to have on our long runs. It's been a game changer for us. If you want to crush your race day strategy, hit the link in the show notes, try the planner and grab 15% off your first order with the code IR-SPRING2025. That's IR-SPRING2025. Hit the link, grab your discount and crush those goals. Now on to the episode. Welcome to episode number 387 of the Inside Running Podcast. A massive thanks to being with us for another week. We got a big show coming at you this week. The Maurie plant meet will be probably the focus when we get to running news. We've got a listener question, Moose on the Loose, Box Hill Classic results to go through, and a couple of whispers noted down here as well. Welcome to my co-host. He spent some time in Canberra last week, but now he's back in Anglesea. Julian Spence, how are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, got up to see the Territory. Bit of a breeding ground up there. Went out to Stromlo. What is it called? Stromlo Park, Croaks? What's the official name of it?
I think it's called, Stromlo Forest Park.
Yeah, fucking good up there, Brady.
I know, I've been there before. World Cross Country Trials back in the day. Man, your mate Skillsy had a sprint off to the finish line that day.
Well, for 18th position.
28th, I think it was. Probably being generous saying 18th. Me, him, Chubba, and Jeff Hunt, the four of us, round the bend together. Those three have obviously had a bad day if I was anywhere near them.
Yeah, you know Jeff Hunt lives down near me now, and he rides the bikes. See him on Strava.
This is the fastest male debut marathoner of all time from Australia. 2:11 flat, didn't he, in his debut?
Yep.
Never went that quick again.
Was that in Fukuoka?
I reckon it might have been Beppu.
Beppu. It was one of those high-end elite type races over there.
Then went to the Olympics, didn't he? 2012 in London.
Yeah, he went to a few major championships off the back of that. He ran maybe a few 2:13s again, but certainly raised a few eyebrows because I reckon the likes of Marty Dent and Brett Cartwright were in that exact race, and they would not have expected to see him run away from them.
Mm-hmm. You're back though, Croaks. Welcome to you. Episode 387. Had the week off last week, so it's good to hear your voice again.
Yeah, good to be back. Enjoyed listening to you boys over a couple of days, actually. I was sort of listening on warm-ups and cool-downs, so it took a few goes to get through the episode.
Yeah, well, Izzy's a pretty good talker. So, we filled that first 45, 50 minutes pretty easy. Moose won a slab off her. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I don't know, did she commit though?
I think she did. I think it was champagne for her, slab for me, but I'll take champagne. I'm good with champagne or a slab, whatever she decides. She rolls business class now. I don't know if you saw her Instagram drinking champagne in the Qantas lounge. So she just bought a new house, if you didn't hear. And apparently it's in one of the real bougie suburbs of Adelaide. So if I don't get this slab or bottle of champagne, I'll be calling.
I must admit, when I was watching the women's 3K, I was more fascinated to see whether, because Izzy obviously fell off fairly early. I'm thinking about the slab bet. That's what I was thinking when I was watching that race.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it too. It was the first thing I was looking. I wasn't looking at the front pack. I was looking at the second pack and seeing what splits they were going through.
Yeah. Just praying she drops off. Shouldn't be doing that at all. It's good to have you back, Croaks. You want to give us an update? What's happened? Where were you last week? How's the body? No long run yesterday. Scared me.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting couple of weeks. So yeah, went camping weekend before last, and got down there and set up. And it's funny, like I've been able to manage my heel and my Achilles, but like I've got it down to sort of a fine art in terms of I don't do a lot of extra physical stuff outside of the running to make sure that I can actually back up and do what I want to do the next day. And then you go down camping and you're setting stuff up and you're obviously walking around more, you're walking on the soft sand, and like it was just a really unenjoyable weekend from a body point of view. And I was still getting some runs in out there, and it's fairly hilly down there for runs, so there's not really any flat options. And when was it? Like Sunday afternoon after I'd done my long run, we were down at the beach before we drove home, and the kids are kicking a ball around, and like I'm hobbling around, and I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like I'm mid-40s, like running needs to be enjoyable, like, or I need to have quality of life outside of running. If I'm freaking hobbling around because I've run for 2 hours in the morning, that's not real good. Plus, just like lack of sleep while you're away, fighting possums on the first night at like 1 a.m. They're like into everything, climbing up on the roof, and yeah.
The
So
roof of what?
so we had the camper trailer which like opens up, and then off that is like an annex, and then so they climb up the poles and they're like on top of the annex. You can hear them. So not great first night, 1 a.m. You're out there like poking possums with a stick to get them away. And,
that would be good footage to watch.
yeah. So my Achilles was probably the worst it's been in the last 6-8 weeks. That trip, and then do you want me to just then run through what I did this week?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Monday afternoon after work, got out for 10K 430s, and then on Tuesday, I thought I'd just give myself an extra day before I do a session. So I didn't do a session on the Tuesday. I just did an hour on the treadmill at 5-minute Ks. I'm guessing I would have listened to a fair chunk of the podcast, or probably the first part of that. And then Wednesday morning, I did a progression run. Like I love these progression runs because great for motivation, because you know that the first 15, 20 minutes is always going to be like really comfortable. And then if motivation's not super high, by the time you're 20 minutes in, you're over that and you're into the session. So I did a similar session a couple of weeks ago, but I just did 35 minutes. So I added an extra 5 minutes. I did 10 minutes at 16K an hour, 10 minutes at 16 and a half, 10 minutes at 17, and then 10 minutes at 17 and a half. And felt actually pretty good on this. Heart rate was a fair bit lower than the week or 2 weeks before, and that's why I did the extra 5 minutes. So I would have averaged like 3:35s for just over 11K in that 40 minutes. Achilles was okay. Like treadmill, it's not too bad. And then so that was Wednesday. Oh, that afternoon, I went out for a double, just like trying to chase a few extra Ks. So 423s for 8K. Thursday, I didn't end up running after work on Thursday because I think at one point Moose were chatting about potentially running together Thursday, and then I noticed you ran around or just after lunch. So I got home from work. I'm like, I've been taking every Thursday off, so I thought I'd just keep doing that. Friday, I then did 75 minutes at 423s. Everything was feeling fairly good. And then Saturday morning, did 5x6 minutes, 1 rep at 17K an hour, 4 reps at 17 and a half. Heart rate for all these, like probably mid 160s at its highest. And then, and then Sunday. So trying to think when it got niggly. I just know Sunday morning I started running and it was fairly uncomfortable, and I pretty much made the call within 10 minutes. I'm like, there's no way I'm not doing 2 hours on this today. Like I'm basically going to run a lap around Mulligan's and go home. I said, like, it was sort of the combination of the weekend before and just, I suppose, over the last few months, it's like I've been getting through okay volume, been doing some sort of controlled sessions, but at some point, just knowing your body's not 100% right, it just wears you down. When you can't train the way you want to, your mid 40s, you're like I get it. Someone like Leanne that's pushing through pain and managing it, like she's got bigger fish to fry. Like I need to think about, just enjoying the running as opposed to focusing on performance. So pretty much bumped into a few of the guys that I coached. There's a group of about probably 8 of them. So I bumped into them about 15, 20 minutes in, ran the rest of the lap with them. So I did 9K yesterday at 4:34s for a week of 94K, and took today off. I called up this morning to get an ultrasound with potentially a cortisone. So I've got an appointment on Friday, and then it's weird. Like back when I used to get ultrasound and cortisone, they used to do it all in the one go. Whereas now I've got to go for the ultrasound, and then there needs to be a 36-hour gap before I go back for the cortisone. So I'm scheduled at this point to go Friday for the scan, next Tuesday for an injection if they think it's worth getting an injection. So that's where I'm at, and I'll probably just jog some 30-minute runs between now and then. But I'm just at the point where I just want to get my body 100% before I train properly again. It's just, I don't know, it's just not enjoyable. Wears you down. I've had to modify my training for the last 2 months. Like the group's doing a hill session, can't do hills, barely done a stride. Like even the track sessions I've been doing, I haven't been doing strides because I'm like, okay, I want to save my heel and my Achilles for the session. It's a shit way to train, and it's not enjoyable.
Probably done well to go this long, to be honest. Like I know when it was in Jan, you're like, it's all right. I'm ahead of where I was last year. I'm happy to ride off Jan. And then it was like Feb. It's like, yeah, it's not better, but it's kind of better. Now it's like the end of March, and you're like, shit, that's like 3 months, 4 months. When did it start? Like December after Melbourne.
Yeah, I sort of pulled the pin. I remember doing a session on Christmas Eve, some 3-minute reps, and it was pretty much that point. That afternoon, I went for a double, and I'm like, okay, I've got to shut things down a little bit here. And it's definitely, it's nowhere near as bad as it was back then, but I just want my body to be right. And if it's not right, then what's the point of just doing sessions and stuff like that? I may as well just jog.
Yeah, you need to make the focus, get 100% healthy, not save some fitness or have these little gains in fitness and things like that. Just number one goal is to get healthy, get 100%, or maybe not 100%, but you know what it means, 95%, 90%, and then worry about making the goal, build fitness.
The frustrating thing is it's obviously not terrible, because for me to have got through what I've been doing the last few months, like if it was really bad, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm hoping just maybe taking a little bit of a step back, maybe a cortisone, if cortisone potentially could just knock it on its head, and then just build up again. But I can definitely run on it. Like I can go and run 30 minutes a day. And I don't think I'd have too many issues doing that.
Yeah. So you been to the physio yet?
No. So I thought I would go and get this scan first, because then I'll get some information about what's going on, and that might then influence the treatment that they give me. So so that's the next step. Go and get this scan done Friday, potentially cortisone on the Tuesday, and then depending on what the scan shows, go and get some treatment.
Yeah, well, yeah, or just get like a really structured, specific rehab program, strength stuff. We know that strength works for the Achilles generally, anyway.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
All right, good. Yeah, I reckon you've done well to persist for this long. Like in hindsight, you reckon it would have been better to have a stressy and you're in a moon boot for 6 weeks and then it's 100% healed and it takes you 6 weeks to build up?
Maybe, and I think that's the frustrating thing. Like some people reached out to me when I first sort of mentioned that I was having this insertional Achilles stuff, and like I think it is one of those injuries that can linger for a really long time, and because there's a lot of factors down there, like potentially could be Haglund's related, which that then could potentially lead to needing surgery, because definitely like the left heel, which is the bad one, like when you feel that compared to my other one, it's like there's extra heel there, like there's a sort of a growth, so that could potentially be causing the issue, and so a cortisone may not fix it.
Yeah, it's I think some people, are shy of going real aggressive diagnosis treatment straight away. But I just love to get to know exactly what's going on immediately. So, because I get the feeling you might think you've sort of just wasted 3 months of nothing. Like did some workouts, had a bit of fun running, but at the same time, you're at the same point you kind of were back then.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Yeah. I just like to go and find out what it is straight away.
But I'm also at the point now where I think enjoying running is like probably the number one priority, and you can't enjoy your running when you're constantly just in pain. And then although the pain was never severe that I had to like hobble, subconsciously you're still probably favoring it, and so then you're just not moving the way that you should move, and
yeah.
Yep.
It's okay when you got a race, I reckon, and it's like, all right, I've got this big marathon in 5 weeks. I've just got to get through these 3 weeks, have a bit of a taper, and then I'll get my body right. Like, there's kind of like 1 or 2 out of 10 niggles that you can just get through, like Leanne, what you spoke about. But when you got nothing until December and you're 45 and you still want to be able to kick a footy with your kids, it's like, well, yeah, at what cost?
Yeah. And look, potentially if the cortisone does settle it, like I won't have really missed any training at all because, like, I feel like I'm fairly fit. And so this week will obviously be a down week. Part of next week will be down because if I have the injection. But although you say I've wasted those 3 months, I still think two lighter weeks, I'm not going to have lost too much in that period.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether the cortisone is actually going to do anything or whether they'll actually even give me the cortisone.
Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, if it's just a degenerative tendon, then probably not.
No, exactly. They'll only give me the cortisone if they can see that the bursa's inflamed, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, or the sheath.
Yeah.
All right, Moose, what have you been doing? Tell us about your fly up to Canberra or drive.
Oh, no, fly. So,
business?
Well, yeah, on the way up because I wanted to go in the lounge. And it was like, I didn't book business. I just got an upgrade. So it was real cheap. But so I kind of messed up because I booked the 6 a.m. flight. And I thought that's what I did last time. But I actually had an 8:20 flight last time. And so I was doing the math in my head like the night before thinking, oh, wait, you have to get up at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And that is very early for me because that's basically like the middle of the night in my world. And it just was a long, long day. But I don't have breakfast or coffee. I just drive 90 minutes, get to the airport through no traffic. But it turns out they do roadworks at nighttime and all the fucking ring roads shut down and everything. So you got to drive through the back streets to the airport. But you can get coffee and breakfast in there. So that's why I did that. And it was like the equivalent of bloody bag of dog food in terms of points, using points. So I just thought this is worth it. But yeah, got up there, ran that afternoon. Well, no, firstly, that was the trip. But I did run earlier that week as well. So I started on Monday, always day off for me. Tuesday, ran with Bree, did some strides afterwards. That's something I've actually been enjoying, is finishing the run, changing shoes, test out a super shoe by doing some strides, feel good doing that too. Something I'm not really I'm not getting a lot of speed or anything in. So I'm just using the strides to do that. Ran with Bree on this run. That's kind of rare that we actually run together these days. Was pretty enjoyable. Talked about some stuff. When you've got a kid, you guys have kids, you don't actually get that much time to sort of talk to your wife, like without getting interrupted or talked over the top of or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the run was pretty good for that. We got to escape a little bit.
Or you're talking about your kids.
Yeah,
Our lives just revolve around the children. You're like, oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. But they also, it might just be an only child thing,
But when you're trying to have a conversation with each other, there is just no way that she can't be the center of attention. She just will not let you have a chat with one another. So
Takes after a dad, hey? Want to be the center of attention?
yeah, maybe she's pretty funny. So there's that.
Got that from a mum.
Next day, did the drop off. So got out around 9:30 for a workout. Ran 4x5 minutes steady, 2 minutes jog. Steady was supposed to be maximum heart rate of 170, which is like below my threshold still. It did go over that. Kind of messed this workout up by running the first 5 minutes a bit too hard. The 2 minutes jog was pretty generous for this workout. So that's why I was able to maintain paces throughout. Like I think this probably needed to be 60 seconds to be a little bit more dialed in of a workout. But I'm still coming back, so I wasn't complaining out there. Ran in the Saucony Endorphin Elite, the new one, which has the softest foam that you'll ever put on your foot. It's unbelievably soft, and on this run, it was too soft for me. So through the heel, like the heel cup is not strong enough, and I feel like I'm falling off the shoe too much. It just wasn't what I felt like. I needed something a bit firmer underfoot, or a stronger upper, or a more supportive upper for this one. The paces, I took your advice, Brady, and I spliced the workout so you can see this. 5 minutes, 3:20. It was too quick. Then I went to 3:23, 3:26, and 3:26. However, the heart rate spent a bit of time above that 170 mark that it was supposed to. But it felt good. I'm enjoying my workouts. I'm not getting hurt from them. I'm not getting sore from them. When really you shouldn't. It's 4x5 minutes. Like you can do that through an easy run and not get sore the next day. But it's fun. It feels like there's structure back to my running, and it gives me some structure in my life. Like when you got to work out the next morning, maybe you don't have that extra beer. Maybe you wake up and your nutrition's a little better. All these little things just contribute to a more, like, probably better running. But yeah, that was Wednesday. So we flew up Thursday morning to Canberra. Had some business meetings up there with a mate of mine, and we ended up running from this place called, what do you call this?
Capital
Jerebombera?
Jerebombra.
Jerebombera. He had his dog there, so we were running down. We couldn't take the dog into the wetlands, so we ran the other way. It was kind of warm. Not sure what it was, like 27, 28 degrees, all concrete. Croaks, what's with the concrete?
Oh, Canberra's like full of, so Canberra's got heaps of trails, but where there's no trails, it's like full on bike path network. Like you can pretty much go all over Canberra and not really have to cross a major road because of the bike path system.
I love it. Like I love that. But even just driving around some of the main roads, there would always be a bike path like snaking across the hills next to you. And then you would see it go under the highway or like over a bridge or something. It's so good. You must want to go out and do big long runs around the city, but then it's concrete. And even on this run, I felt like, I'd like to be on some dirt. You get so used to dirt if you're not used to concrete, it kind of bangs you up a bit. I see Rob Wilson does a lot around here though.
Yeah, for his marathon specific sessions, especially if he's training for a flat marathon, just because it's fairly flat around that east basin, we call it.
Oh yeah, okay, the East Basin.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mind it. That Capital City Brewing got some good beers. You ever post up there as a group? Mulligan's Track Club, go there?
No, we've never actually been out there.
Oh, that's where I'd be doing I'd be leaving there at 9, get back at lunchtime, have a beer after your run and some food.
It is a good beer. It's a good. Didn't it win the hottest 100 beers a couple of years ago?
Did it really? Which one?
The white can, I reckon it is.
Because
Put me
that
on the spot
trail,
here.
that pale ale trail, that is some harsh shit. Like that kicks me a bit hard. I don't like that. But they've got some good ones in there. It's called the Coast Lager or something, maybe. Really like that. They've got some good lager. They're not all like heavy, super hoppy ones. And it's just a really nice like beer gardening area.
Oh no, one coming at number 17.
What was it?
That was the Coast Ale.
Yeah, the Coast was good.
That was 2024. Could have been a different year though. They won it.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, they're good beers.
That's a good list to go off, actually. I might have a look at that. Flick that through.
You just Google it. You don't need me to flick it through.
Okay. I'll forget if you don't know.
Is Ben Spoke up there as well, Croaks?
Yeah, they are. Yep,
Maybe that's what I'm thinking about. They were third. Geez,
Where's that at,
competitive
Croaks?
in competitive beer market in Canberra.
They were in the city around Braddon.
They have, yes, I remember seeing it.
Actually, had a few beers there the night before I got married. Ben Spoke.
Oh yeah,
would have knocked you around a bit for wedding day, wouldn't it?
Yeah, not as much as wedding day.
Where'd you get married?
So had the ceremony at my old school in the quad, and then out sort of northwest Canberra, it's called like Strathnairn Art Gallery. They had like a wool shed out there, so we hired the wool shed and basically did our own catering and stuff like that.
What, you cook sausage rolls yourself?
No, we had like a roast group come in and cater it.
We don't need to be talking about this. Who's has gone to Canberra for a business meeting and now is really interested about all these places in Canberra.
Get to learn about Croaks' life. I want to hear how his wedding went.
You're asking the question. You're trying to get as much Canberra intel as possible.
I reckon he's going to move up here soon by the sounds of it.
No, I'm interested in you and your wedding.
Second time for the year he's been in Canberra.
I want to know about Croaks' life, a little bit of backstory to the guy we talk to every week, Brady.
Well, you could have went for a run with him. Fancy going to town and not running with each other.
Palm me off. Give me a stiff arm.
2:30 p.m. on a Thursday. I was at work.
I fucking said, hey, Croaks, I'm going to run today. And he's like, yeah, I'll just run from home. All right, mate. Sounds good. I'll just run from down here where I don't have a car.
Sorry to interrupt, but you got to listen to this one, especially if you want to watch Jess Hull at the Grand Slam track this weekend. NordVPN have partnered with the Inside Running podcast to offer you an amazing discount. Head over to nordvpn.com/inside running to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months on top. Think of NordVPN as your personal bodyguard for your online activity. It encrypts your internet traffic, shielding your personal information from those prying eyes and online criminals with state-of-the-art encryption. It can help you book flights and hotels for your next race, as well as when you're over there, you can still connect to a NordVPN server in your home country and safely enjoy the content as if you've never left. Wherever you travel, it's perfect if you want to follow Aussie sport. With NordVPN, you can access all your streaming services from back home. Don't forget, there is literally no risk to you with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Give it a try, and if you like it, great. If you don't, they'll issue a refund, and you can pretend the entire situation never even happened. Check out our link at nordvpn.com/inside running to get your subscription started today. You can also find the information in the episode description and our link in bio.
I really wanted to see Stromlo. So every time like those trials are on, I love watching the footage they take the drone out, and it just looks awesome. I love seeing this beautifully manicured like cross country course in the middle of like a brown, dusty bush kind of environment. It's just so cool, and I just love that they've dedicated like money, space, like a focus on running. It's very rare that you'll find something that's just fully focused on something quite nerdy like cross country running. And yeah, maybe it's iconic to me because I watch it so much on the streams whenever there's a race there. But I wanted to go out and see that. So drove out there on Friday morning. Didn't realise that there was all the other mountain bike stuff and the crit tracks and everything that goes with it. And then once I saw it, I remember you talking about a 5K race there that happens, Croaks. That's on the crit track, is it?
Yeah, every January.
Yeah, it's like, how far is that? 1,500 meters, the bike course?
I think it might be like 1,200, but they don't. When they do the 5K, they don't go all the way up to the top of the hill. They, you know, how you can cut across. They cut a little bit early
Oh, yeah, okay, right.
and
Because
do like
it's
close to 5 laps of it.
yeah, yeah. I thought it might get a bit messy with people. Like, is it seated? Like, are there different races for different?
Yeah, and look, there's not that. It's not a huge turnout. Like, there's never anybody like getting in anyone else's way.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, we warmed up on the course. Uh, pretty, pretty like tight turns, few little steep downs. We didn't do that fully sharp little hill section. We didn't go up and down that, not in the warm up anyway. But I thought it was really cool running on there. Made me think about shoe choice if I was ever training on like grass again. Realised there's not too many shoe options these days for grass running outside spikes. But then I did the workout on the crit track. So it was 3 by 5 minutes steady, 1 minute jog, 90 seconds solid, and it was actually supposed to be 90-second jog, but I just did a minute because I didn't check the workout before I started, and I probably needed 90 seconds jog, given how cooked I was. So I started out heading north on the course, and got in trouble real quick. So my heart rate got up to like threshold pretty close to what's that, like 3 minutes in, which is too quick. And after that, I just couldn't feel myself recovering. So I went 3:26 and then shuffled for a minute. Then I went 3:10 for the 90-second rep. Then 3:35, 3:04, 3:37, 3:06. But I was going around some of those corners and I was literally like jogging around on that last rep. Because you go up a hill, your heart rate doesn't come down. And I know it's not much of a hill, but it's enough where when you're sort of not processing lactic like I am, once it floods you, you just can't get rid of it, and your heart rate stays up, and you just have to basically jog, which is what I did. So it wasn't great, but while I was doing it, I'm like, if you do the crime of getting carried away, overestimating your fitness, not being disciplined, then you've got to finish the workout, and you can't just push through at a high intensity when it's not supposed to be to make it look good. You've got to try to stick to your program as best you can.
So why are you getting carried away, Moose? Because like where you are at the moment with your comeback, like you don't need to be pushing sessions to still build fitness.
No, I think it's like a bit of me not like having a good workout last week and running it well and seeing some faster paces show up, and then thinking that I was fitter than I was. And so the first few minutes of the rep, I'm like, this is fine. And I'm not looking at pace ever on my watch list. Like it's not even showing. So I have it. My perception of effort is wrong, and that's what it is. Like I'm when I'm running, I'm thinking this is okay. This is the pace that I should be running at, but it's actually much harder. The intensity is too hard for what I should be doing. But I'm just so far removed from that right now that I don't like. I'm not lining it up well in my own head.
Yeah, and I suppose lack of mileage means that you have less room for error in terms of you're lacking strength. So like when you're really strong and aerobically fit, you can probably get away with pushing the envelope a little bit more.
Definitely,
couple of seconds here or there.
Your heart rate drops way more on the rests, and so that next rep you can sort of punch a little bit harder. Yeah, and I was supposed to take 90 seconds after the 90 seconds on, but still, it was still like I only coach a few people now, and they're very good, these athletes, at sticking to their effort, even if it means the Strava will look shit or the paces are slower than they're supposed to be. But they're very good at that, and I was just thinking, if they can do it, then you've got to do it. Like, get your ego in your fucking back pocket for a while, and run some slow reps. So that was, and yeah, so cool down in the bush area around the park. Then next morning, jogged down in Anglesea. And then Sunday morning, got out for a long run with the group. This was pretty enjoyable. Ran through the bush, some pretty tough little tracks out here, some real steep, sharp stuff. Always undulating, no real flat until we got to back to the car at 14k. We dropped Crammers off at 15k. And then all of a sudden, Toby kind of decided he wasn't going to do a workout that day. So he was going to run 2 hours, then do a workout. And once we got back to the car, he decided, I'm not doing a workout. So he went and pushed some of these big hills at the back end. And I got fucking dropped real quick. And I didn't push too hard to get back. Like I let myself get dropped because I knew it was a long way. Like this last hill went for 10 minutes basically. And I got dropped very early on it. And yeah, caught up on the downhill, but oh man, they stopped. They slowed down to let me catch up on the downhill. But yeah, it was 400 meters of climbing and 20k. So it's not crazy, but it's just steep stuff. And I'm again just not used to it. But yeah, good for me, I think. Like good for my growth. I mean, I got dropped going up K19. My gap pace was 3:44, and I got dropped fairly, like massively. So it was moving up front.
Those boys both doing Ballarat though, like a month out. They're fit.
Yeah, they are. They're fitter than me anyway.
Like you don't want to be in your second week of a comeback training with guys who are 4 weeks out from a marathon.
Who you've spent the last 5 years just beating the shit out of on every Sunday. And then they get a bit of a chance to get one back and they're not going to miss.
Yeah, especially if you decided not to do your workout, so you're a bit dirty on yourself and probably want to start pushing the pace at the end.
That's exactly what was going on. You could tell there was a little bit of self-hate there.
Yeah, you just need this though you do this for a month. They don't even push the pace on. You just copy and paste that same week for a month, and you're pretty fit. And out of that, that risky period when you return to this kind of structure, and it's just like this is in the next 2 weeks. This is where an injury pops up for you. Yeah,
it does. You're right about that. That's why I'm lying here right now. I'm going, geez, the body feels pretty good. Like I've sat here a few Monday nights going, oh, the knee fucking flared up, or I'm feeling some Achilles stuff and my back's real sore. But I'm sitting here now going, geez, touch wood, it feels all right. And I'm back. I've like halved my anti-inflammatory intake, which is good. So that's promising as well. Yeah, I'm keen though. I'm pretty pumped to start getting back. Might try to get there to that first cross-country race, Hanging Rock.
Is that round one, is it? Just don't be too keen though. That's the point I'm making. I'm like, check the ego, effort base, consistency is king. Don't get carried away thinking you got to smack these boys up in 2 weeks.
Got the best coach in the business looking after me now. Don't worry about that. I'll just be disciplined here.
She had a baby too, didn't she? Little Bobby, baby
yes,
Bobby.
Yes, she did. Yeah. We met Bobby yesterday.
Congratulations, Ali Pashley.
Yep. Little Bobby to add to the collection down there.
That's an exciting thing for their family.
Yeah, pretty small baby again. Like Tiggy was fucking tiny. Bobby's pretty small too. They make small children, those two.
Do you know how many kilos?
No. Okay. Oh, Bree told me. I'm like, I got no idea what that relevance is. Is that big or small?
I had no idea until we had our own kids. I just never listened to anyone tell me the weight of their kids until I had my own. Now I'm interested in it because I know that I think 3.5 kilos is like average or something like that. So that's my only yardstick.
Yeah.
Is it just small because it's a baby? Like a 3-day-old baby maybe?
Nah, I think it's pretty small anyway.
Okay.
But sometimes you get it in pounds, sometimes you get it in kilos.
It's like the miles and Ks, mate. Miles and Ks.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a good conversion for that. Yeah. It's 2.2, isn't it? 2.2 pounds to a kilo.
I wouldn't know. I only know kilos, babies.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm
good. How many overall Ks?
70 something.
Good.
Broke said 75 the other day. That sounds about right.
Good work. I'm going to whistle through this one. Monday did 70 minutes at 4:37 and then 30 minutes on the treadmill that night. Tuesday, 20K in strides in the morning and then 35 minutes on the treadmill in the afternoon. Said it before, I'll say it again. Clayton Young's YouTube video. They're so good. No Man's Land. That's the latest episode. I enjoyed that one. He's in a bit of trouble though, I reckon. He's not real happy with how fit he is going into Boston. But that's what this content is, isn't it? It's a bit like reality TV with runners.
Do you reckon having Conor Mance is sometimes a bad thing for him?
Conor Mance just fangs everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, and so do you reckon that he's potentially then trying to keep up a little bit too much?
Well, he gets dropped all the time, doesn't he? Like, I don't know how much maybe he keeps up, then he gets dropped, but he seems to be pretty measured where he'll, like, Clayton just goes off the front every single rep, looks like he's racing. I've never seen that guy do workouts where he looks relaxed. Like, his style just looks forced and he just, runs super hard. Obviously it works for him, but it'd be hard training partner to have when they're just, I think the coach said it in one of the episodes too. It's just like you got a really well measured and is he an engineer, Clayton? So he's
I think so.
Very that's the way he thinks. Then he pretty much just says Connor's just a madman, just goes off the front. So
is he work, Clayton? Yeah,
work.
No,
like you said, he's an engineer.
Oh no,
I think that's what he just did at college.
All right, yeah.
No, they'd be on big money, those two boys, wouldn't they?
Well, I thought so, but then you said that.
Sorry, that must have been like his degree at uni when he was. Yeah. I don't know how much. He must have been doing a bit of uni work if he was got that qualification. Wednesday, boys, went over to Shep. Haven't been over to Shepparton for years. Wanted to do a track workout. I do have a booking with the local council and they gave me a key, but it was quite a few years ago. So I got to Shepparton, new fence around the outside. My key no longer works. I thought, that's not good, especially when you've driven an hour to get there. But I did suss out an area of the fence that I could leap over. And Croaks talking about, kicking the ball with your kids and actually just functioning in life outside of running. Jumping a fence will sort you out. I was like, I'm too old for this shit to be jumping fences. But I did notice when I was warming up around the local streets of the Shepparton Athletics track that, because they've got the gates every 100 metres that swing over and the gates were all unlocked. And I'm like, this is great. I can do my 400 metre reps in lane 1. Did the warm up, jumped the fence because my key that I actually have a booking with didn't work. So I wasn't doing anything I shouldn't have been doing. Did some strides. My plan was I was going to do 3 sets of 10 400. First set in 72, second set in 70, last set in 68, extending the rest as I go, jog a lap in between. And then just as I was about to start the first rep, a couple of people rocked up and started unlocking the gates. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. Like, am I going to get kicked off this track real quick? So I just started the workout and then did the first 2 reps. And I reckon after the second rep, there was probably 10 people there. And I was only having 30 seconds between the reps. So I didn't really have a chance to talk to them, but I quickly figured out it was like a school carnival. And they're like setting up speakers, unloading tables, starting to unlock the sheds to get the high jump mats, all these kind of things. So I pretty much just made a decision then to do as many 400 meter reps off 30 seconds as I could before getting booted off the track, or it just become a bit like awkward. So I got to 20, but it was just a weird vibe, like just people walking in between you. And they were they had the track book, so they had full right to be setting up like they were. But you just know when you're doing a workout and the only thing you want to be doing is concentrating on the workout, not how many reps am I going to do? Am I going to get kicked off? And I was trying to make like a bit of small talk with some of the teachers in the 30 seconds between, but I was really just trying to breathe and stuff and just trying to like suss out the vibe that if they were happy that I kept going. So I ended up doing 20 in like 69, 70. 30 seconds hits real different than 45 seconds. A lot of my recent times have been 45 and 30 was like a whole different level. So got it done. Still a decent workout, but I kind of was annoyed driving home, like knowing I drove over there to do a certain workout and I didn't achieve that. Kind of pissed me off a bit, but
could have been worse though. Like I reckon you got fairly lucky. Like, there's a chance that you drove an hour and didn't even get on the track.
Yeah. Well, I made sure I did have it half in my head that I'm like, oh, this track could be booked. So I wanted to start at about start the workout at about 8 a.m. So I left pretty early. But yeah, I would have been real pissed if I drove over there and did 400 meters up the straight road out the front of the track. That would have been a bit different. 35 minutes on the treadmill, that Arvo. Thursday, 60 minutes before school. Then Friday morning, met up with Connor Dillon. He was in town again. Spoke about him a few weeks ago. He was there with his colleagues, Alex McCann and Darren Boyd. Darren's been a long-time listener of the show for years, boys. Remember he used to I was telling Connor early days, because I reckon he used to work for SBS or maybe Athletics Australia or something like that. He was pretty high up. He always used to listen back in the Tell Me a Tale days. So it was good to see him in person. And Alex, these are all lawyers, I think, for the same business. I used to teach Alex when he was in grade 6. So super weird that he's now a lawyer and had come back to his hometown to go for a run with some of his workmates while they're at a conference. But I ran with Connor. That was good 80 minutes, some good chat in there, 4:35 pace, 35 minutes in the Arvo. I listened to Fireball Friday, boys. We got to mention, I listen to this show every Friday. It's felt like absolute footy nuffies like me, Kane Corlins and David King, the best 2 hours of footy radio for the week. And they were talking about podcasts in there and going through the charts because they had a beef with this other footy podcast, and they were kind of bagging out this other footy podcast saying how it's not even in the charts. And then they were going through the podcasts that are in the top 50 on the charts. And he's like, this other podcast, you're not even bigger than this one. This one is Inside Running podcast is ahead of you as well. And I'm like, two worlds collided. I'm like, my footy nuffy world and my running podcast world. So I appreciate Corn giving us a shout out there. Saturday morning, did 70 minutes in strides. Then I went to Melbourne to watch the athletics. We got home about 11:30, back to Bendigo, stayed at my parents', and then did a long run into a workout Sunday morning. So I did 2 hours over the hills, about 500 metres with Andy, Sean, Naveen, Darren. Steve was there for most of it as well. Then changed into some super shoes, went to the toilet, had a bit of a drink, and then I did 3 sets of 2K, 1K, so 9K worth of reps, 2 minutes jogging between the 2K and 1K, and then 90 seconds after the 1K before starting the next set. This went pretty well. I was kind of always
before.
Is it your workout? Is that where it's come from?
Well, yeah.
Because this is what Toby was going to do. Because I was at the athletics with Toby, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm doing this, and he's like, "Oh, I was going to do exactly the same thing." And I'm like, "Yeah," because we've both copied it off Moose. Do you have the same recovery between 2 minutes and 90 seconds? Yep. Okay.
Exactly.
Stored in my brain somewhere. I'm like, I think I've done this before. Is there another alteration of it where you do 8x1K?
Yes.
Yeah.
Will Newton did that. Well, it's not an alteration. It's just a different workout. But I normally do that. Pardon?
Did he do 10?
Oh, yeah, 8, 10. But kind of like doing that takes you almost into over distance. Like kind of how you've done here you've gone over 40. But these ones are good to get you up around that. Normally it's 30K into this. You finish at about 42.
Yeah, and it was just convenient that the loop was 28. We kind of got back to the cars, and and Andy was doing 250 with a bit of a surge towards the end. So he'd kind of peeled off. The other guys had finished at 2 hours, and I was just like, the toilet's there. Go to the toilet, change your shoes, get going. Did it around this. Yeah, it's probably a 5K block, bit of downhill, bit of uphill, bit of wind around as well. So some of the reps were really easy. Some of them were really hard. I went 6:34 for the first one, 2K, which was downhill, and then 3:16 for the K, which was kind of flat. Then I went 6:41 up the hill and into a bit of a wind, and then 3:10 downhill. And this is where I saw Andy. He was finishing. He had 15 minutes left of his long run, and he just said, I'll pace you for the next 2K. So I sat behind him for the last 2K, and we ran 6:38 up the hill into the wind, and then I just finished it with a 2:59, but it was downhill tailwind. I don't know. I think my gap was 3:08 pace or something like that. So don't think I blew the doors off at the end there. It is quite nice when you see 39th K being 2:59, and then jog back to the car for 40K at 4:06s for the day. Week of 172. Yeah, good.
Where's your fitness at compared to I don't know, other marathons you've done? Where do you feel like you're at?
I reckon I'm a tiny bit underdone, which I think is an actual good spot to be 4 weeks out. Like I've wanted to push a few things a bit further. I've wanted to make some of the, some of the 60s that I've been laid out the door have been 70s, but I've had to kind of cut. Like, I don't feel like I'm like deep in marathon training, but I feel like I'm very fit. So I'll know this like typical kind of 3 weeks out. I'll do something marathon specific Sunday, and then I'll get a good indication as well. But yeah,
Going to have a rest week at any point?
nah, just keep these are rest week. That's another thing. My mileage has been in the past. I've like got close to and over 200, whereas I think 174 has been my biggest week. But I've had more consistent weeks at 160 to 170.
Do you
So
feel like you get more fitness from doing that extra 30 to 40K a week?
I don't know. I think it's good mentally to see those kind of numbers, but I think it makes you more tired, of course. But I don't think I can do any more than this at the moment. Like I feel like this is 170 is enough for me at the moment. I feel like I'm on top of the fatigue. Life balance is good. Yeah, there's nowhere last week that it looked like I looked at and thought, oh yeah, I could have found an extra 20 or 30K. Felt like I was pushing stuff as I could.
Still on track for your, if everything goes well weather-wise, to run ahead of a 220 pace group?
Yeah, well, I think I can run a PB. Like my PB is 2:19:40. I think, yeah, I've peppered that. I think I've ran between like even 220 flat and 220:40, 4 or 5 times, and those blocks. Some of them have been more impressive, but I think I might have even overtrained in a couple of them and had the like overseas factor to deal with. So yeah, I'm confident I can run a PB off what I've done so far. Haven't had a lot of racing, but that 3K showed me that I was in shape. That half marathon I ran in 69:40 showed I was like in kind of cruise control. And as I said, this week I'll do something marathon specific that will give me a good indication.
I feel like
Yeah.
you're a bit more, yeah, I feel like you're a bit more low key, like, which is good. Like, I feel like in the past, like when Moose said, oh, do you think running an extra 30, 40K a week gets you fitter? And you're like, mentally it's good. I feel like sometimes you've basically just been doing those big weeks to almost like, I don't know, give yourself confidence. But as you said, it's probably physically overdoing it. Whereas I feel like this time around, you're not really following a set plan. You're taking sessions from here and there, and you're a little bit more relaxed about it, which may actually pay off come race day.
Yeah, and it's like a race 2 hours down the road. Like, when you enter a big overseas marathon and your whole life kind of feels like it revolves around Chicago marathons in 10 weeks, 9 weeks, 8 weeks, road to Chicago, like booking flights, things at home are like a bit more focused around the race because it's a big deal. Whereas this is like, yeah, I don't really care too much in a way.
And I suppose at the back of your mind, there's always the chance, like you don't want to go so serious with it that, because there's always the chance in Ballarat that you're going, like the weather's not going to play ball anyway. So whereas every overseas marathon, you never really think so much about the weather. You're like, I'm going to Berlin, weather's going to be awesome. Going to Valencia, it's going to be perfect conditions. Whereas, you're going to Ballarat, so there's still a chance that you could be super fit, but it turns into more of a race than trying to chase times, depending on the weather.
Yeah. And this feels more like I'm putting a bit of, you kind of brought it up a couple of weeks ago, Moose on the Loose, maybe a month ago, like this whole I'm marathon training. I'm like, I feel like I'm just training and do a few longer runs. Like it's, yeah, I don't feel as high strung as in this is a big marathon block. Just
You
I'm
can still run a good
doing
one
work.
off that.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm feeling great in these workouts. Like those paces come pretty easy at the end of it after smacking up the hills and not a lot of sleep the night before. Anyway, let's move on and talk about some Patreon supporters, Croaks, and then we'll get into some race results. Who are you thinking?
So I've got Niels Henrik Stoke. So boys, there's a Strava link there. Maybe open it up because pretty cool profile picture he's got. So I think he's Norwegian. He's got a Strava account, but there's no activities logged on there. And his profile pic is Jakob Ingebrigtsen holding Niels's phone, doing a selfie of himself and Niels in the background. And it looks like it's at some sort of major championship because it looks like Jakob has the Norwegian flag sort of draped over his shoulders. It's a really cool photo. Only result I could find was a 3:36 at the 2023 Berlin Marathon. You boys seen the photo?
Yeah, I just looked at it.
It's pretty cool.
I think I've looked him up on Instagram as well. Here, Croaks. Is he a photographer?
I don't know. Is he? Maybe.
Maybe he was working the event as a photographer.
Because even Jakob's smile there, it's almost as if he does sort of know him, like he's a bit more up and about than maybe a standard selfie.
Jeez, he's got 6,000 followers on LinkedIn. Is that good?
I don't know. It sounds good.
I don't have an account, so I can't see him.
Anyway, good work, Niels. Thanks for your support and great photo.
Who you got, Moose?
I got Alex Reid from England. According to his Power of 10 profile, which for those people that don't know is like a database of results for UK people. They don't have international people on that, do they?
No, I don't think so. You must have to be registered or something over there with a club.
Oh, you reckon it's like a Athletics England or whatever?
Yeah, because it often has like the county, their club.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. UK athletics operate that like if AA was going to do it, it would just have AA races, not fun runs.
Well, I don't know. The Power of 10 has people's park runs.
Yeah, maybe it links it all in somehow. But anyway, Alex has run 156 for 800, 358 for 1500, 1452 at the 2023 Tracksmith London Twilight 5,000 metres, and 30:52 at last year's night of 10,000 PBs. 68:21 for a half and a 2:41 at the 2023 London Marathon. It's a clear worst result here, boys, but what about the others?
It just shows it's a different sport, marathoning, doesn't it?
Who knows what he did
can
there?
go wrong in the marathon.
But that is what is on his results, is a 2:41. But 30:52 is 30:52 better than 30:52 is my pick out of them.
What about the 156 800?
Yeah, I don't care about 800s though. Don't even know.
I think point wise that would be the highest points.
No, I don't know. Really?
I just think of how many people can run. Oh, yeah, I don't know.
That's because you follow the 10K runners, not the 800 runners. Think about a lady. Let's think about Rose Davies. She's running faster than 14:52. She hasn't run 3:58. She ran faster than 30:50? Don't think so.
No, I reckon it's somewhere around that.
She could though. She's like a 14:40 girl.
Well, she hasn't. So
it's hard to find straight 10K races. Go to Albert Park 10K Moose and see the guys who run 30:50, and I don't think many of them could run 1:56.
Yeah, maybe, but nearly all of them run in the others though. So that yeah.
Well, look at Jess Hull. So Jess Hull has run quicker than 3:58, run quicker than 14:52, hasn't run anywhere near 1:56. So did you say 1:56 is the best result there?
Trailful's right again, I think, Croaks. Well done.
Well, yeah. I don't think we don't talk to 800 runners.
Think about you, Moose. You could run 30:52 off a few months training. I could do it like tomorrow. I could not run a 1:56.8.
Yeah,
I'd run like 2:04.
Sub 1:56 isn't that hard, boys. Come on.
Yeah, I could have back in the day, but not now.
Did you back in the day?
Run that pace for one lap.
I think I did in a pro race, actually.
Oh, here we go. Yes, you ran 720 metres.
That is the worst comment you've ever made.
I think it equated to something like 151.
No, Brady. You can cut this if you like, Brady.
No, I'll send it. I was talking to Nitter about this the other day. I was sending him an old article.
Oh, of course, you blokes were talking about pro
Nitter
races.
and I in pro chat.
Where you run off the front and have people catch you, and then you race against all sorts of age groups. And
Nitter's been good in my DMs recently, actually. Got some good South Australian stuff for me.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks, Alex. Next, you're up, Brady.
Oh, I've got to find this message, but I'm going to thank Clint Elliott. He's from Townsville up there in Queensland. Strava's locked down, but we found a few results from him, including a 16:25 at the Alpens Weir Park Run and a 2:36 at last year's Gold Coast Marathon. He'd love coming from Townsville down to the Gold Coast. That would feel like a nice, cool day for him, I reckon. He's potentially an electrical engineer. Smart guy as well if he's got that degree. Thanks, Clint, for your support. Alex, Niels, Inside Running Podcast. If you like us and you want to chip in financially to keep the show alive, we spend a lot of time away from our families, away from relaxing, away from doing our jobs to bring the show to life every week to go out free on a Wednesday. You can support us at patreon.com/Inside Running Podcast. If bonus content's what you're after as well, we have a level where you can get a bonus show every week. The UK boys recorded yesterday. What do we got this week? The monthly boys are coming up this week. There's usually a bonus show every week if running content is something you're after. Plus, you get the show unedited on a Monday night instead of Wednesday after Zaka goes to work on it to make it all good for the public release. Well, I got to work on it, but Zaka tells me what I got to do. That's how that works. Race results, boys. Thanks to our official race results partner, Axel Coffee, for the best in specialty coffee. Visit axelcoffee.com.au. Here's this week's race results. I was there, boys. Biggest athletics meet since did you see the year? I should know that. Was it 2002? Something
you
like
mean
that.
attendance?
Yeah, 10,000 people, sell out, Lakeside Stadium. I walked in and I was just like, wow, there's a lot of people here. I've been there maybe not 100 times, but at least 50 times over the years and never seen it packed out like that. Just huge crowds. Did this kind of thing where it was like a pre-meet and then the actual meet started at 7 p.m. So there was some stuff on from maybe 6. We got there maybe 10 past 6 and it was already packed. They had the 800, I think. They had the men's 100, which I was surprised that wasn't in the broadcast window because at 7 o'clock it went live to TV. 1.2 million people tuned in live to watch it as well. So we're talking big numbers here for athletics, and it was really, really cool to get down there and see it all in action. Glad I made the effort to go. Went with Crammers, and then we bumped into Toby, the bad boy Mende, when we first got there. Toby was getting recognised heaps, so we found a spot on the fence, so at about 180 metres to go. So pretty much where Gout was lining up for the 200, we were there on the fence there, and he just wanted that so he could just look out to the track and no one could see him. Had his hoodie on, real discreet. We were set up. It was like a live podcast, man. Him talking shit for 3 hours. Bit atmosphere wise amazing, but a few things they've still got to figure out. The line for food was 25 minutes, half an hour. The line for beers 25 minutes, half an hour. What about $12 for a beer? Didn't matter what beer you got, heavy, mid strength, or zero. Who's buying a zero? For $12? Yeah, zero beers was still $12.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You should, just because you can't fleece people. You got to get people back. It's like Nike selling a $220 Vomero. You need to bring people back to your brand. And
but I think the cost was okay. You kind of get that when you go to live sport, that the beers are going to be expensive.
Well, it's not just that. It
was the wait time. Yeah. I still owe Toby a beer because I was like, hey, there's 30 minutes of this meet left. I owe you the next round. I don't want to miss the last 30 minutes in the line to get beers. So
he would have been dirty on that.
I dogged him there, yeah.
I guess from an organiser's point of view, these food vans, they probably need to organise well in advance. And, traditionally athletics is not very well attended. And so they then, organise a few food trucks based on how many people we normally get to these sort of meets. And then come race week, they're sold out all of a sudden. How hard is it? It's probably fairly hard to get more food trucks last minute.
Short notice there.
Yeah. But I mean, they know from trends of ticket sales what's going on. And it wouldn't be that hard to call in a bar with beer. They're the ones supplying, I'm guessing they're supplying the beer. They're selling the beer, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many bars there were, but the one near where we were, that was a bit of a lineup. But pack though, boys, and geez, the athletes turned out. I'll start with the 1500. Our man, Cam Myers, got the win, 334.98. Adam Spencer, 335.5. Ollie Hoare and Jude Thomas, exactly the same time, Croaks.
Dead heat. Yep.
Oh,
even
was
to the thousandths. Yep.
Yeah, 336.48. Cam pretty much pushed the pacemaker off the track with 700 metres to go. Like, so aggressive off the line to get in that box seat behind the pacemaker. And then it's the first time I've seen a bit of like, I didn't see it at the time, so we were looking straight up that back straight where we were. And we saw that he swerved, but we weren't sure why until I watched the coverage afterwards, that he was pretty much frustrated with the pacemaker. And the first time I've seen a bit of aggression from him, Brad. Like, he seems very chilled, but he gave this guy a spray as he went past, threw his hands out, like a bit of extra aggression there for the young king in Canberra.
Yeah, I don't know, but you could sort of sense it. And this is where I think sometimes pacemakers, like, okay, their goal is to get to 800, but you don't just go to 800 at the cost of ruining the race. And the pacemaker because I could see it on TV. I'm like coming down the home straight. So what's that? 650 meters in. I'm like, everyone's starting to bunch up. Like, this guy is not providing any value anymore. Like, he's better off stepping off. And he continues to go around the bend rather than even stopping at the sort of finish line. So I can sort of understand it, because obviously Cam's, and I guess Cam could always just go around him, but Cam's strength is obviously, and his race tactics was to try and run all the other boys off their legs. And so if you have a really slow lap after the first lap's quite quick, that's just going to play into all the other boys' hands. So he's made the effort to get on the pacemaker, wants it fast, and then that guy's just slowed it down. It's really impacting his race plan.
What were the first 2 lap splits, do you know?
Nah, not sure.
Because it looked good early, but yeah, watching back, it did look like they threw the brakes on a bit. Coming down the home straight to get 2 to go. Anyway, he was so strong.
That just on the pacemakers, that's why you need someone who's experienced and accomplished as a runner, just to understand that a little better. It's hard to bring someone in who's young, who just because they might be fit and available. I mean, it's probably better without it.
So he just ran him off their feet. Like, I tried to get the splits, which is hard on the stream, but he just has this ability to go a third or a fifth of a second quicker every 100 meters. And when you're there live and you're watching him, he looks so controlled, and he looks like he hasn't even turned up the pace until you look at the guys behind him, and they're just all arms, and he's just cooking them. And he just keeps bang, 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 just puts on 4 or 5 layers, got a gap, held on in the straight. Spence had a bit of a crack at him, but yeah, he was well clear. So I actually had this as a run of the night. I was like trying to rank him coming home, and this was number 1 for me. Like,
he definitely gapped them, but I thought with maybe 120, 130 to go, like, Spencer was at that point probably moving the best. And I thought Cam was starting to actually look fairly tight with about 100 to go. But yeah, obviously the strength got him there. But it's probably the most tense I've seen him upper body wise in the last 100 of a race.
I thought exactly the same thing, actually. I thought Spencer had him. I thought he looked more in control at that point when he came up on his shoulder, and you could just sort of tell Cam wasn't looking like as in control as Spencer. But that is a sign, that's kind of a sign of class, is that you can still pull out the win when you're under pressure and things aren't going how you want them to go. That was what made it even more impressive, especially at his age, to have the strength to be able to do that, like get himself into deep water, be like struggling like to get out of it, and just compose himself enough to be like, no, I got this.
Can you ask him, Croaks, because when I did do the splits, and as I said, this was hard to do just watching the footage every 100 metres, but from 700 through to the finish, he got faster every single 100 other than 200 to 100 metres to go. And that's where the wind was. So the wind was smacking him in the face. So I don't know if he just thought, just ease off a bit and then go again in the home straight here, or the wind cooked him, or what it actually was, because that was the only 100 that he didn't turn it up slightly. But yeah, run of the night for me. Claudia Hollingsworth in the women's 1500. She ran a meet record, which was 4:05.97. Sarah Billings was second, 4:06.37, and Linden Hall third, 4:06.89. So some slower times, although that was a meet record. Like we know these girls can run, pretty close and under 4 minutes. Claudia just had, she was in some trouble. She got in trouble with 200 to go, and then she got out of trouble around about, I'm going to say 120 meters to go. She just found this perfect gap to slot through. And I think I said on last week's show, if she was there at 150 to go, she was going to win it. She has this incredible last driving push to the finish. And same thing as Adam Spencer coming for Cam. Sarah Billings made a good attempt to try to lock down Claudia in that home straight there as well, which was pretty impressive. But the two young guns that everyone's been talking about for years, and now they're not just young guns anymore. They're just guns. They're world class, and they've just won the biggest 1,500 meter races in Australia.
She didn't really leave much to chance, Claudia, coming out of the pack. She made a few moves that she created her own space, we'll call it, in the packs, which I loved.
Couple of elbows.
Off the rail. Yeah.
I reckon she went from 2.5 deep to on the rail at about 210. I'm like, what are you doing? Stay wide. Yeah. And then she just snuck out again and around.
She definitely wasted some energy with those sort of late race tactics. But yeah, I like that she's going to hold her own in packs. You're going to see her in the 800 a lot, at 1,500. And there's going to be some racing at championships where she needs to be strong in packs and not just get pushed around. That's not her. She is going to own her own space. And again, kind of like Cam, found herself in a bit of a trap, got out of it, and won the race. It's 20, I think she is, or 19 maybe. It's just so good to see these crew winning. Not just sitting back and finding themselves on the podium, but winning big races.
I can't wait to see Claudia in a fast 1,500. Because she closes really well. I feel like she's getting stronger, and I can see her going way under 4 minutes in the right race where it's fast from the gun and she just sits in.
Yeah, spot on off her 800 meter PB as well. The women's 3K is the next one I'm going to talk about. This was also a meet record, and boys, it wasn't good weather down there. It was pretty windy. I'm going to say 15 to 20k an hour winds. So and it was probably hitting them in a good spot that it wasn't directly in their faces down one of the straights. But yeah, from 200 to 100 to go, they were getting smacked with a headwind. The Ethiopians threw it down. There was two there, Belayneh and Georgia Griffiths was in between them. She comes second, and then Getachew was third. So it was 8:34.3. Georgia was 8:35.1, and Getachew was 8:35.2. Maurie Skyring, she just has... she just grits her teeth. Seeing it in person, we're seeing it on the streams, she just knows how to hurt herself. She was, 8 seconds off the win, but every move she tries to stay with there, and she doesn't die wondering. I thought this race was Georgia's to win, fastest in the field, didn't do any work, sat beautifully, just couldn't quite get there at the end. And she has come back from China, I guess, World Indoors, but considering she's an 820 girl, and a fast 800 as well, I think she'd be a tad disappointed that she couldn't win this race in front of her home crowd. Still an exceptional run, but everything was perfectly set up for her to take the W.
Well, she looked like she was going to win it there at one point, coming sort of around the bend, and then sort of about 80 to go. It was almost I'm struggling here, because I think the other Ethiopian went to the front. But I thought it was a pretty good run, given she'd just been overseas that week.
The old don't pass on the bend though. Went wide on the bend and then got to the straight, and she'd maybe gone a bit wide. Who am I to tell an Australian record holder how to run track races, Olympian? But that was
she got a bit boxed. That was the thing. The Ethiopian one was on the rail, Georgia was behind, and the other one just sat on her shoulder. And even as the one in front slowed down, the one on the shoulder stayed, and so did not let Georgia get out. It was only a small thing, but I reckon there was a little bit of tactical teamwork going on there. And then that's what forced Georgia very wide to go out. Yeah.
Okay. If you're listening, the chances are you're gearing up for a race, but how dialed in is your race day nutrition? Precision Fuel and Hydration makes it simple with a free online planner to calculate your carb, sodium and fluid needs for peak performance. Their product, like the 90-gram resealable gel, helps you hit your numbers with ease. That's why legends like 4-time Olympian Lisa Waitman and ultra runner Hayden Hawks trust them too. Head to the link in the show notes to create your personalised strategy and then use code IR-SPRING2025 for 15% off your first order. Or if you're a Patreon supporter, grab your exclusive 20% off discount code from our member-only episodes. Time to level up your performance. Click the link now. Now back to the episode. The men's 5K, star-studded field, but no Jack Rayner on the start line. When they lined up, it was pretty quickly went around our group of people that everyone's like, hey, where's Jack? Jack's not there. What's up with Jack?
And Stewie was originally on the start list, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then he was taken off the start list on race day, or he definitely wasn't on the start list that night.
Yeah, okay. I think that news had already come through in the message group that Stewie had been removed from the start list. But everyone was expecting Jack to be there. And from what I've heard, it's a stress reaction for Jack, which isn't great because we always seem to talk about Jack's history of injuries. So no Jack. Kai Robinson got the win, 13:13, which is an outdoor PB. Like he's ran the low 13s indoors. But our man boys, Seth O'Donnell, 13:14, he made the race. So pace is there. And then I reckon the Kenyan Kiplagat took over the running for a couple of laps. And I watched the commentary back. They didn't give our boy enough kudos on the commentary. They didn't mention him until 7 minutes in. Or in 7 minutes, they'd only mentioned him once, and they just talked about his positioning. They just said, oh, there's Seth O'Donnell in 5th or whatever. And then at about 7 minutes, Tamsin started going through the fact sheet about he's a physiotherapist, he's a drummer, he's got the long hair. And I'm like, everyone at the track, all we were talking about is, and this is a small sample size, but I think this is our audience, is when's Seth going to go? Seth's still there. He hasn't gone off the front. It's 6 laps. It's 5 laps. They're like everyone, all the diehard fans just wanted to hear about Seth, which I know different broadcast moments that you're going out to the general public. They don't froth Seth as much as we do. But you knew, if you did any research, you'd know that Seth was going to be a main player in this race.
Well, I got a few examples of the night, and maybe we'll get to them a bit later on, where the mainstream media don't do a very good job sometimes of painting the picture of the race or knowing the people. It's like they have their set stories that they want to focus on regardless of how things play out.
You could tell that. You look at how many times they mentioned Kai and went through Kai's stuff in that first 7 minutes compared to Seth.
Yeah. So and Peter Bowl in the 1500. So Peter Bowl is obviously the public figure. Everybody knows Pete from the last Olympics, or the drug stuff. So he's well known. And because Channel 7 have it, it's on free to air. The amount of times that Peter Bowl got mentioned in that race, when at the end of the day, he was never in the race. But so much of the story and the commentary is about this one person, or they've basically scripted it before the event, and regardless of what happens, they're just going with, we're going to talk about this person. So same with Gout. The whole meet was around Gout. But then he gets beaten. But nobody really celebrates the guy that just beat him, even though he just won a medal at the World Indoors. It was really poor in a lot of those races, the way that they did that.
Yeah, disrespectful. You got someone coming back off winning silver medal in the World Championships 2 weeks earlier, or 1 week earlier, whatever it was.
Yeah, 1 week.
And he's not even getting mentioned, and he's just a sideshow to the kid coming up. And there's nothing against that. The kid's a kid still. Got to remember that. That's another talking point. We're just making this massive spectacle on a kid who's still growing up. And I mean, I don't like that either. It's exciting for athletics, but just remember, this is not a child, but he's not an adult yet.
Well, you could sense it after that 200, where the commentators were almost like, "Oh shit, what do we do now?" Because this, we've got this script of all the questions we're going to ask Gout about, how amazing that run was and what he's going to do next. And it's like, oh, okay, got to go and interview this other guy, but that's not who we've made this meet about. So what are we going to do now?
And even during the interview, let's just talk about Gauka. Like, even though this bloke's coming off a silver medal at the World Champs, oh geez, what about Gauka? And then in the I think it was the men's 5K where they came up to 200 to go. Well, they're like, this is where Gauka's going to take off from later.
In half an hour. Yeah, that was cringe.
Like, just put the agenda aside for a second.
Yeah. Where are we at with Bruce though? Like,
you know my thoughts on Bruce.
Well, he seems to it seems like he's almost in the Gauka team. Like, he's done he'll be on SCN radio and they'll do a 10-minute interview and he'll go into all these details about gout and be like, oh yeah, I was talking to his mum and he had his exams yesterday, and like, it's almost like he's part of the family, like in the inner sanctum. Like,
he's a bigger frother than you, Brady, but like he sticks to, like, he basically has his like favourites.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Anyway, back to my guy, Seth O'Donnell. We can get to more stuff about the night, but Seth made this race, 4 laps to go, just blew the whole thing to smithereens, ran a 61 second. Kai Robinson was the only one who was able to respond in any way, and he probably still got dropped by 15 or 20 metres. And like, I've interviewed Kai, interviewed him for an hour, good chat off air. I'm like, not a bad word to say about him, but my love for him is nowhere near my love for Seth. And at this stage, we are yelling every time he goes past. We are banging the fence. In our area, we're going nuts, and we're all just like screaming for Seth. Like, haven't been like that at an athletics meet for ages. And like, I didn't mind that like Kai was going to win, but we just wanted to see Seth win. And he got bloody close, like a second, off, and Kai kind of got him with 250 metres to go and just showed his class and professionalism. Jack Bruce was a further 9 seconds back from Seth in an almost different race. They were kind of racing for third in 13:23, which would have been a PB for Jack, I reckon, and a whole lot of PBs from all the usual suspects across the line after that.
I know we had Seth on a couple of weeks ago and he's talking about, just finish up track season and then cross country. It's like the way that he's running these races, like, as you said, he made that race, and a lot of people would say, well, you probably cost yourself any chance of winning by going hard 4 laps out. But if he didn't do that, he doesn't run an 8-second PB. So but what we haven't seen from Seth since this sort of newfound form is him in a race where you've got a heap of 13 to 13:10 runners and he actually just gets towed around the whole way. And so I really think we need to see Seth overseas this European season.
Do you think that's Seth, though? Do you think that's going to bring the best out in him?
Well, it's not going to be as exciting for us because I think what we love is about just he's so unpredictable.
Yeah, but do you think that sitting at the back of a pack is going to bring out the best in Seth? Or is it up there rattling cages, throwing wind to the fire? I've got a feeling that guy is you're going to get the best out of him when you put him in those positions.
Potentially. But from a physiological point of view, you'd still have to say that he would run faster in a race where he doesn't have to do any work.
Yeah. In the lab,
he was pretty
patient.
patient.
As you said, it wasn't perfect conditions. So those 4 laps or 3.5 laps where he's actually out doing all the work, 61, 62, 62 into the wind.
I thought he was pretty patient to leave it that long, to be honest.
Yeah, he looked like he wanted to go, and I think I said to Bree while I was watching, I'm like, he needs to go. Like, this isn't him sitting back waiting now, and you could tell he wanted to go, and that initial 200 that he dropped probably cost him. I like what he did, of course, but I was actually more blown away by how professional Kai was in treating that attack and that move, and how calculated he was in timing his pacing to get back on to Seth and pass him without making any rash decision. Like, he saw the move. He calculated in his head, this ain't worth going with. Like, and you're talking about a wild animal like Seth O'Donnell.
He kind of did go with it though. He responded in a way, because otherwise he dropped all of them.
You don't think the bronze medalist in the World 3K could have gone if he if he wanted to?
No, I think it was like respect it, keep it at 20 meters, but don't react 100%
That's what I
to it
mean,
yet.
though. He
Yeah.
made a decision. He's in Melbourne with a full house, and he's watching a bloke take off, and everyone's screaming at him to cover the move. And he's made a decision, a professional decision in his head. No, that's not the one to go for yet. Like,
Do
I'm
you
going to
reckon?
sit back,
Yeah.
run on my own, and I'm going to catch him later. And
Do you know? Yeah. Do you know what it reminded me of? Zatopek this year when Robbo broke up the pack and Jack just went, nah, I'll let Robbo go. I'm not gonna cover this move, and then just slowly wound them in.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I was
Jack ended
impressed
up
by Kai.
beating Brett by a bit that race though, whereas Seth held on pretty well here. Do you reckon Kai Robinson knew who Seth was 3 weeks ago?
I don't know. That's a
We're
good
talking about
question.
a guy who's gone to uni, been an NCAA champ. He's in a professional setup. He's just got a bronze medal behind Jakob Ingebrigtsen and Aragawi. He's come back and gone, who's this bloke from Melbourne with long black hair? Like, who's never been a professional athlete ever. He's a physio a couple of days a week. Runs around XCR season.
What about even us? Like 12 months ago, if we sort of said, oh, yeah, no, Seth, we'll be raving about Seth at next year's Maurie plant meet, you'd be like, come on, seriously?
Yeah. Well, after he got that longer term injury, and I thought he might have just been that flash in the pan kind of guy who's come out, he's smacked up some cross country sessions, and then he's just fallen away and gone back to whatever else he was going to do. So it's cool to see it happening, and the whole world watched this. Like, yes, 1.2 million watched it on TV, which is awesome, especially when you turn on Channel 7 and you're like, the main 7 channel has it, not one of the sideshow channels. That's awesome. But the whole world would have watched this somehow. Like, it would have gone on, like, people are like, oh, Kai Robinson's running, we got to watch it.
World Athletics.
World Athletics. That's right. So you would have people in Europe going, let's get this guy to our race. Like, this is cool. Like, who's Seth O'Donnell? And look at his hair and check out how he runs. Like,
Has he got a manager on his World Athletics page? You know, you can see who they're represented by.
I doubt it. Come on.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there'll be a few lining up to. I think there a few might have made contact with him after Saturday night.
Oh yeah, I reckon I've heard of one actually. I heard about someone sneaking into his DMs. Someone who can spend some high places.
Someone local.
You'll know who I'm talking about. 800 happened. This was before the meet started. The second part of the meet, I reckon, wasn't it? Was this on TV?
No, it wasn't on TV.
Peyton Craig got the win there, the beast. He ran 146.45, beating the Luke boys 146.73. Compare their styles up the home straight. One looks a lot smoother than the other, but Peyton knows how to get races won. These guys are going to be having battles for years, I feel. Pretty close finish there. And Tess Kersop Cole, she ran 2:02, beating Carly Thomas in 2:03. I was at the 200 metre mark and I said to the boys, I said, Carly Thomas is going to win this easy. She looks so relaxed. She's going to peel out and pip her in the home straight. Tess Kersop Cole took the wind and then kicked away in the home straight. This was a impressive run. And I think she left that on group.
And
Carly's
I don't think she had a contract renewed there.
So I don't think got it renewed. And then Carly's still in there and then she's beaten her. So
that would be feeling good. All of these races would feel very good.
Yeah. So that was it. Good night. Great atmosphere. Just there. Oh, the speakers stopped working. So we didn't have any commentary for probably the last hour, which when I did listen back to some of the commentary, it could have been a good thing. And just no clock as well. There was no clock and just a few little things like that. If you're paying, if you're going to an athletics meet, I'm literally messaging you guys saying what time was that race won in? And I was standing 250 metres away from the finish line. Or you're taking your own splits. You're like, if we're going to be world class, you need all those I's dotted, T's crossed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you reckon we need to change the name of it if it's going to get this big?
I was going to bring that up, whether, what your thoughts are on it still being called the Maurie plant meet.
Well, my thought was when I was leaving school on Friday afternoon and people asking me what I'm doing for the weekend, I just said I'm going to the Melbourne track classic athletics meet because I didn't have a couple of, when you're literally getting in your car and I'm like, oh, I'm going to the Maurie plant meet. They're like, what's the Maurie plant meet? So I was just like trying to, I think to get in, and I know like I wasn't bringing that up to talk about Maurie plant as a controversial figure. I was more meaning like we've named a meet, the biggest meet, after someone who's pretty niche in the athletic circles that even us, like I didn't even know about that controversial stuff when he did pass away and we had Tim O'Shaughnessy on the show. Like I knew it was a big deal in that little, well not that little, that bubble of the athletics world, but how relatable is it to get the general public there to be like, even if we're going to name it after one significant Australian running person, is he the top of your list that you name it after?
Well, definitely not. And not when you consider you do a Google search of him and the stuff that comes up. Like you're comparing him to, a Kathy Freeman or
John Landy, Ron Clark, even Peter Norman. Like if you're going to have your sprint events, there's a statue of Pete Norman out the front of the stadium. Like if Gout's 200 meters is your main event, Pete's is silver medal, 1968 Olympics.
For 2 years now, it's been the biggest event in Melbourne, like athletics. It's been the biggest event in Australia, and they got 1 point.
It's because it gained different certification, though, didn't it?
Yeah.
So if it was still
when I
named the
say
Melbourne,
biggest, I'm talking about like the spectacle of it.
Oh, so now you think it will become more easier to understand to the general public?
No, I'm saying it's irrelevant what it's called. I'm saying it's made no difference to getting 1.2 million viewers on TV, and it could be called anything. They got 10,000 people to the meet. I don't think it matters what it's called.
Here's a question for you. So obviously because it was on prime time on the main Channel 7 station, and in the weeks leading up to the meet, they ran that segment on Gout on like Spotlight or whatever, or Sunday night show. Like went for like hour and a half. Had Bruce and Matt Shervington and Raylene Boyle, I think. And
Kathy Freeman was talking about him.
But there's all this hype, and so there's a lot of probably non-athletic people that got brought into that hype around Gout. And then they're on a Saturday night watching the TV thinking that they're going to watch something absolutely amazing, and he loses. We know what the Australian public are like. How many people back at home would have been going, they've been talking this kid up for the last 3 weeks on like primetime TV, calling him the next Usain Bolt, and he didn't even win. Another Aussie beat him. Like, we've been taken for a ride. He's not the next Usain Bolt. Now, I think he will be great, but the general public out there, I feel like they're going to be like, oh yeah, no, he's not that good.
He already is great. Like he's broken the Australian record.
We're talking about the punters here, the people that don't actually understand athletics.
Yeah. I was pretty close to where he was setting up his blocks, and he was so nervous. Like you could tell it was very uncomfortable for him. We just sat there, no one spoke, and we just watched him, get the measuring tape out and change his blocks and take off his jacket. And then they held him for so long, and then a long jumper started doing the clap thing when they would be. So then all the attention went over to the long jumper. Then it came back to the 200, and he looked very rattled by the amount of attention on him. Which we kind of spoke about it before. I'm not sure if that's good for someone his age to be the center of our sport. Like the sport is on his shoulders, and that's why people are coming through the gates. And he did this weird thing. He did it at the end too, where he pretends to put on a mask, and then he takes off the mask at the end. And I don't know. As just a general observer from someone 10, 15 meters away, it just looked like he was acting to do that. That didn't come naturally to him. Like you see some of those, the Usain Bolt. Like I reckon he'd be great to have a beer with, and he'd be charismatic and stuff like that. Whereas, I don't know, I got the impression that he thinks that's how he's got to act to be the best sprinter in the world, and he kind of puts it on a bit.
Well, the carry on after the race when he got beaten, like that was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Like you had all of these photographers around him, and he's sitting down, like, I don't know, doing some pose, pointing at them. It's like, this guy just lost. And all the camera people are around him, and then he's walking back and going on as if he'd sort of won in a way. Like it's really cringe when you see that sort of stuff.
We're in unknown territory here, like, because you want the media attention, but we're saying you don't want too much media attention, and you want the sport to have people going there. Like, if he wasn't there, 10,000 people aren't rocking up.
No, but it's more like, okay, have the hype before the race. You lose, you basically like shake the winner's hand, do your interviews, walk off. Like you don't need to put on a show because you came second.
No,
like
but
no one's
he
expecting
is,
it. No one's
the show, Croaks.
But no one's not when you lose.
No,
it shouldn't be the show.
I think he was the show of the whole 2 hours.
Yeah,
that's how it was pitched. You know what I mean? You said the same thing.
But would you do it? Like if you've just lost to somebody, wouldn't you want the attention to go on the person that's just won?
I was at the skate park when I was 18, smoking Winnie Blues, having a couple of beers out the back behind the half pipe.
Like you wouldn't be trying to take the attention away from the guy that's won.
No, but he's lived a complete different life than very much anyone else in Australia from 16 through to 18. Like it's.
I think he'll be a star, but it's just like I think
he already is a star.
Got to
kids at school know him.
Tone things down a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like it's called glazing, isn't it? When you glaze someone like as much as the media's glazing him. Is it good for the kid to get glazed that much?
Don't know. Too old for that term, Brady.
Yeah, I don't even know if I said it right. I was just trying to figure out what our thirst trap was a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, that's the Maurie plant meat. Croaks, tell me about the 10.
Yeah, so this, I guess has sort of been one of the quickest 10K races in the last few years, held over in LA. So in the women's race, we had 2 Aussies, Lauren Ryan and Holly Campbell. The race was won by Elise Cranny in 30:36. Second was Wanny Kaladi, 30:38. Callie Thackeray, another podium, 30:53 for her. Lauren Ryan was 5th in 30:58, and Holly Campbell was 17th in 31:54. Solid run from Lauren, 30:58.
Yeah, that is solid.
Yeah,
really. Like we haven't seen too much of that over here. Domestically, we haven't seen that yet.
No. So I feel like, obviously, was it last year's meet where she broke the Aussie record? Or the year before? I think. I reckon it might have been this meet last year that she broke the Aussie record.
Yeah, I know it was this meet, but I don't remember which year it was.
Yeah, so it was this time last year, because then she would have qualified for Paris.
Paris, yeah. So
which had to run pretty quick to do.
Fairly consistent now, like over the 10K. In the men's, they had 5 runners sub 27 minutes. Ishmael Kipkarui, 26:50 for the win. Habtum Samuel, 26:51 for second. And Adrian Wiltschut, third, 26:51. Aussie went around in the 1,500 metres. Jackson Sharp came second in 3:36. That's a very solid run from Jackson there. So I thought I'd mention that one. And that's the 10.
Did you see that men's race? How 2 guys... This is just all off X. I didn't actually watch it, but they must have told them there's going to be a bit of a delay at the start. So 2 guys were 100 metres back doing strides, and then they blasted the gun, and they had to.
Was that in the men's 10?
Men's 10. The guy ended up coming 4th. He ran 26:52. It just said, this tweet said they started the 10 with 2 athletes 100 metres from the start line. Talahu Haley Bikili, the further runner, fought back and finished 4th in 26:52.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
So
how do you mess that up?
Handicap racing. I reckon the starters probably said, something's wrong. Actually, nothing's wrong. And a couple of people have darted off to do some strides and bam.
Surely they could still stop the race because they've all taken off and then 2 guys come past 10 seconds later. Those guys have only run 100 metres up the road. It's pretty rough not to stop it.
Maybe they were like, you did the wrong thing. Should have stayed here. Trust the officials. Box Hill Classic Moose, bring us home for running news.
Box Hill, we had Peyton Craig. He was back in action down in Victoria. What did he run? 146.9. What did I see he ran? 146.45 at Maurie Plant. So he's run just slightly slower at Box Hill a couple of days earlier. Beat Jared McAuliffe, 147.27. In the ladies, Bendiri Oboya ran 205.63, beat Nadia Power 206.52. So some big star power out in the 800s, couple of Olympians there. in the 1500, Max Shervington, hearing his name a lot lately, he beat Adam Goddard 342.69 to 342.79. And in the ladies, Stephanie Kelly 424 beat Karen Yasumoto 426. A couple of big stars out in the 3K as well. Ben Buckingham, he won in 756 to beat Will Garbelotto 757, and Ed Marks also on 757. Sarah Klein won the ladies 926. She's going pretty well, I think, at the moment, by the sounds of things.
She races a lot, doesn't she?
Yes, she does nearly everything.
Yeah, it does the trails and stuff too. Pop up in a fun run.
Yeah, Bianca Puglisi was second in 929.
Good to see Bucks back.
Box Hill Classic there.
Those results brought to you by Axel Coffee. Check out their new Axel Coffee and Ernie Old run tees via the link in our bio or shop axelcoffee.com.au. That's good, boys. 2 partners coming together. Done some work with Ernie Old, done some stuff with Axel. They've
Melbourne companies.
Designed some T-shirts. Not a lot of whispers. Oh, did you see the media release today from Sydney Marathon? $135,000 for elite athletes for their Australian-only elite athlete program, which Benny St. Lawrence is the boss of, I think. That's the way it's written. 30 grand for the winner. Break the Australian record, you get an extra 10 grand. Second place, 20 grand. Third, 10. Fourth, 5. Fifth, 2,500. Moose booked his accommodation this morning. Croaks, fancy that.
That's why he's pushing these workouts.
Yeah, plenty of time, Moose, to be winning Sydney.
Yeah, well, I mean, wouldn't it be nice? 30K, a couple of blokes have a bad day, you go out slow. Yeah, it could be a hot day. I don't know. There's a bit in there.
In August.
Isn't it a shame Sydney didn't become a major back in 2019, Moose?
Yeah, that's what I
You
mean.
Second or third? Second.
No.
Third.
It was fourth, I reckon.
Tommy DeCano, Dean Menzies, you?
Robbo.
Yeah.
No, I was saying back in 2019, Moose would have been like, was the only person we sent to the World Championships.
I had a look the other day. Because I'm not sure why, but I had a look. And in 2017, I think it was, or 2018, I was ranked second in the country. Brady was like fourth. Or maybe when did you run well? 2017?
Yeah, no, it was 2018 I ran my PB.
Yeah. So we were all in the top 10, I think. And I thought, this is going pretty well. Of course, I was the highest. And I'm not sure what you two fighting for scraps below. It would have been you, Croaks, because you're faster than Brady. But I thought, this is pretty cool. I should send this to you guys. And I didn't. But I'll go back and find it again because I'm thinking about printing it up.
Yeah, because you would have gone to, 216 at Berlin that year.
Yeah, no one else really. There's only like one person that ran faster. It wasn't an impressive year for the Aussie marathoners. Back then, that's what happened.
Maybe we sort of kick-started this marathon boom. They're looking at us going, geez, these guys are in the top 5. They're hacks. We can smash those guys.
Nah, you'll be surprised where like a 220 gets you. That will get you like 14th, 15th for the year.
Yeah, back then it was getting you like, you were 220.
I think I've been top 10 before with like a 220.
That year.
Or
this isn't hard to find. We'll have a look later.
I love that you've just come across this, Croaks. Oh, I don't know how I've come across it.
No, this was Moose came across it.
I know, that's what I'm saying, that he come across it. I was
very happy to come across it. I'm looking for everything I can get at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I'm not sure how I came across it, actually. It must be buried pretty deep down. It only took me about 6 hours to find it.
No, I've got it saved on my computer, the rankings list all time. Because it's good to have it. It's good to have it for research when someone runs a PB. You're like, oh, where does that stack up?
There you go. You're the one.
Yep. Yeah. My other talking point, what about like lanyards when you go to an athletics meet and they've got like athlete lanyards, coaches lanyards, media lanyards, VIP lanyards? Like, you realise you don't have to be a lanyard wanker and have it around your neck the whole night. You pretty much just put it in your pocket, and when you're asked to show your lanyard, you just get it out. So, like, if you're in the toilet, take off your lanyard. If you
Who's
know where
this? Who have you spotted with a lanyard you don't like?
it was heaps of people. Like, I had not seen so many lanyard wankers in my life and they weren't even good lanyards. Like, I've been at some athletic meets before where you've had to get your photo taken and it's kind of like laminated and it's got like barcodes and QR codes and stuff on it. This was just like a flimsy bit of cardboard that just said, like, my one just said media. Like, that was it. Athletic Australia media approved or something like that. But a lot of lanyard wankers at this meet on the weekend, boys.
You had a lanyard. You
wouldn't have. I had a lanyard to get in for Free Moose and to cover the event for Inside Running Podcast, but I didn't even have to go anywhere to show my lanyard because I was like trying to protect Toby on the fence there. But yeah, a lot of people getting around unlanyard areas with their lanyard, like front and center. How good have I that I've got a lanyard? That was my observation.
Don't know about this one. You've gone off pretty hard here.
Don't you think? There's a bit of look at me walking around an unlanyard area with your lanyard on.
Someone got given a different coloured lanyard to Brady, and it got him into much nicer spots than this. And he is upset.
I had the legit lanyard. I could have not lined up for beers and went up to the media room and got free drinks and food, but I decided to be amongst the people down there on the bend.
You know who will be going next week, Moose? People that wear their marathon finishers medals to breakfast after the race or to the airport the next day.
No, I love that. Wear them. I wear them. Chicago, American marathons are big for wearing your medals out. I took my medal out. Because you've earned that. You know what I mean? You've run 42.2K. These people, I'm like, yeah, you've earned it to be an athlete but it's just a pass to get you into a certain spot. You don't have to wait. There'll be still people wearing them tonight, I reckon, Croaks, Monday night when they're having dinner. Take them off. Don't have to listen to the show with your lanyard on. You can take it off.
All right, Moose, where's your World Championships lanyard? I reckon you've got that hanging up somewhere.
Oh, yeah, keep them. They're good to keep, but you don't need... I'm not against the actual item. I'm against people thinking they're more important than other people by wearing a lanyard in an area you don't need your lanyard. You know what I mean?
All right, mate. All right.
So, remember when we got them for World Cross Country Croaks? They were good lanyards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But what about Brady?
And you wanted to wear it to the pub that night, and I was like, Croaks, we're going to probably get belted as it is being at this pub, but let's try not to attract attention to ourselves.
So the group chat on Saturday night, Brady's like complaining that he had to walk 3K to get to he's like, surely they would have had a car park out the front for me.
That was just a good joke, Croaks. I wasn't serious.
What about him getting a media lanyard and not doing any work?
Yeah.
This is the work. I've reported back with the show.
Those lanyards are supposed to get you into interviews. You're supposed to be asking questions or reporting back. You just sat there and watched a race.
Because, he just said to me, can you ask Cam, about his every 100 metres? Like, you should have been down there interviewing him, asking him that question.
I did want to go down there and meet the young king in person, but the crowds were too big. And there was like big dot points. It's like, do not ask people for selfies in the media area. Do not do this. And I'm like I was just like, probably can't
directed at you.
Remember, we got told that at World Cross as well. You weren't allowed to do that.
No selfies with the athletes. No, I went down so I could report in an audio format.
Well, what about so going back to our Patreons, Niels, you reckon he's a photographer? Maybe he had a photographer pass. How's he allowed to do selfies?
Yeah, maybe it's different in Europe.
Maybe.
Anyway, keep your lanyards in your pocket until you need them to get into your spot, and then you can wear them with all your other lanyard wankers in the same spot. But not amongst the people. People who are on minimum wage, they probably spent their hard-earned to get in the gate. You don't need to be flashing your lanyard around. Move on, Moose. Moose on the loose.
Well, before we do that, Croaks has gone and he's had it on his open tab that he leaves open all the time. For the Australian Marathon Rankings 2018 male, number 1, Liam Adams. Number 2, Julian Spence. Potentially like the greatest achievement of my life. 3rd, Reese Edwards. Forgot about that. Big Reese over in Chicago. Michael Shalley 4. Number 5, Brady, guess who?
Croaks.
Brad Croker.
Bullshit. 2 in the top 5.
2 in the top 5. Back in the day, we were making moves.
What year was this? 2018.
Yes, that was like 12 within the first 12 months of the podcast.
Oh, if you're a new listener, go back to early. Go listen to the first 52 episodes because these two are good runners.
What about 2018 would have been a highlight when everyone just getting better? Now we're all just getting worse.
Well, hang on. I said I could still run PB in 3 weeks.
Well, we'll see how you go, and then we'll come back to that.
It's just a bit lower hanging fruit.
But let's keep going down the list. Jack Colreevy, Dave Cronity, good from Dave up there. Then number 8, Brady Trelford.
Bullshit. 8.
Number 8.
8 in Australia. That's when I would have been signing deals with like Kia, Moama Bowling Club.
You would have used this, I reckon, this ranking.
That's pretty good flex, isn't it? Number 8 in Australia for the year.
I'm going to use it from now on. If anyone asks, we only good at running. Well,
yeah, that's his new intro, Brady. It's not the only guy we sent to the 2019 World Championships. The man that was ranked second in 2018.
That is some big flex. Second in the country. Second, the best Australian.
All right, Moose. It's like you got a lanyard on now.
I'm getting a new lanyard made with this on it. And I'm just going to wear it to all the athletic meets I ever go to, ever again. I got a moose on the loose, though, for you. I was watching on the weekend, and something came to me that I've thought about a lot. But why do sprinters all have to start cuddling each other after they finish a race? Like, what is it about that? As soon as I think some of them start looking for a cuddle even before they cross the finish line. But it doesn't need to happen. Like, you don't need to go and fake cuddle. You see the way the ladies do it? They like turn their head away and they just like give each other a little pat. Like, this is such fake stuff. Like, you don't really care about this. Real sportsmanship is actually caring. This is just for show. This is bullshit. Like, I don't like it. And the men kind of do the same. They all look for each other and like do like a bro shake or whatever. This doesn't have to happen. Like,
but what about the women's 15 and 3K? No cuddles in that. Is that what you're telling me?
Nowhere near as many cuddles. Okay. No. Like, the race finishes, then they all walk off. It doesn't. Maybe they all finish at the same time. That's why there's heaps of cuddles. I just don't think it's required. And I think it looks so fake. So fake. Like, the friends, you can tell when two friends cuddle each other because they're actually really happy for each other. But the others, it's just like, get away from me. Sweaty person, get off. I have to do this because the cameras are on me and it's what we're supposed to do. But I don't like it.
Interesting observation from you. Like it. Croaks, listener question.
Yeah, this episode's listener question is proudly brought to you by Precision Fuel and Hydration. And the question comes in from Knit Me Together on Instagram. And the question is, living in hilly areas and easy runs, do I accept heart rate spikes / higher average heart rate or drive to run on the flat?
It is a good question, actually.
Post big workout, you'd go flat, wouldn't you?
That's right, yeah. So I think they're getting it a bit wrong here by thinking it's the heart rate that's going to be the thing that they need to worry about. It's more the muscle damage on the legs that I think they need to worry about. Is if for an easy run, like, it depends if it's a recovery run or if it's a proper easy run or whatever. But if it's a recovery run, then going out on a hilly area, you have to be very strong and very conditioned to still recover doing hilly runs. So I would drive and I would run flatter if I was on a recovery run and I'm not strong enough to handle hills for that.
I think it also depends on how hilly we're talking. Like, you know, you go out to somewhere that's mulligans where it's like just gradual rolling hills, nothing too steep. Like, I think you can do your recovery runs out there. And yeah, your heart rate might get a little bit higher going up the hill, but you're not climbing for 15, 20 minutes. You know, it's maybe 2 minutes where the heart rate's just a little bit higher, but it's going to come back down on the downhill. I think that's fine. But if you're living somewhere like those hills you're talking about at the back end of your long run, Moose, where it's like a 10-minute climb, yeah, like you don't want that on your recovery run.
That 10-minute climb is literally 1 kilometer from my house and could easily form a great part of a recovery run for me. But there's no way I'm going to go and do that as part of a recovery run, because the goal of the run's to recover. And if I run 10 minutes uphill, I'm not recovering in the slightest. That'll be difficult for me at the moment. But when I'm second in Australia, boys, 2018, I could go up that hill and that would be pretty much fine. Like, it's not going to stress me out too much. My legs can handle it. My heart rate won't jump much. So I'm actually not too stressed by it. But at the moment, that would be a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, long and even steep hills. So like even if you're living somewhere that's not a 10-minute climb, but it's like a minute, that's pretty hard to run up. I wouldn't do that on a recovery run either.
Mm.
It needs to be rolling hills or flat.
And those rollers like that, if you're doing Tuesday, Friday workouts, the Wednesday might be flat, drive there, super easy. But then the Thursday, because you've had an extra 24 hours, you can get on those rolling hills and you're still going to be able to hit your workout fine on the Friday.
That's it. There's a difference between an easy run and a recovery run in my world anyway.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And especially if you're training for a marathon. Like those, if you're doing big stuff on your Sunday and then your Wednesday, well, your Monday and your Thursday need to be super, super easy. Thanks to Precision Fuel and Hydration. Visit precisionhydration.com and use the code, this is new code, IR-Spring 2025 for 15% off your first order. IR-Spring 2025. Boys, what's coming up? We got the Grand Slam track. Get a list of this. Global broadcast deals will bring the league's inaugural season to fans in 189 countries and territories worldwide. Australia is not one of them. We cannot watch Jess Hull at the Grand Slam track, which is the newest concept, innovative, going to change athletics, hopefully. That's what they're hoping. New Zealanders can. Afghanistan, they can. Ukraine can, but no Australia. And 186 other countries can. This is bullshit.
Especially coming a week after we've just had like the biggest attendance in athletics meet in the country in a very long time.
Kicks off in Jamaica.
Why?
I think no one in Australia no one's taken them up on it. Is that how it works? Because it said like Eurosports and then it says all the countries that Eurosports will do it. Like we have Eurosports on Fox, but I don't know why it doesn't get programmed there.
No, I don't think we have Eurosport anymore, do we, on Fox?
Oh, is it gone?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
But, yeah. How can you stream it? Can you just use a VPN, go stream it?
Our friends at NordVPN will have you looked after there.
What I'm thinking about.
Get yourself a VPN and this ad will be inserted into the episode. But if you've got to this stage and you didn't pay a lot of attention to that, NordVPN, there's a code, isn't there? We got a code for this? Jeez, I'm trying to find it here. Pad for me, boys. Tell me something while I find an email.
Do we know what time, in terms of the time zone, what time of the day in Australia is going to be on?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure how it works with Jamaica, but NordVPN has partnered with the Inside Running podcast to offer you an amazing discount. You got to go to nordvpn.com/inside running to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan. Plus you get 4 additional months on top of that. Also, there's literally no risk. So they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. Give it a try, and if you like it, you can watch the race, great. If you don't, they'll issue a refund and you can pretend the entire situation never happened. So that's nordvpn.com/inside running. That's how you're going to be able to watch the Grand Slam track.
It's a good deal. You also, with a VPN, you can also watch those big marathons. Like you can get onto some of those streams that you can't normally. It can be
That's
good.
A life changer. So that's big. Like they got $400,000 US in prize money for the total prize pool. No, sorry, that's how much an individual can win. There's 12.6 million up for grabs in total.
Jeez. Yeah. Big money.
That's big. Croaks, what are you doing? You're actually going to be testing out some apparel between now and next week, aren't you? You're going to be reporting back in next week's episode. Moose, I think you know a bit about this as well.
Yeah, so got a singlet and then a pair of shorts that I'll be wearing and, giving a bit of a review next week. I've tried them on. Very impressed so far.
That's from our friends at One Running. So that's Seth's sponsor. You see him in that, I think he wears one of a kind singlets now. Is that big?
Yeah, how sick is that? Eddie Van Halen, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it Eddie Van Halen? I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. I just said, pretend I knew what I was talking about. But it's some musician from back in the day.
some guitarist, right?
Yeah.
He explained it well in his video.
Yeah, he put a post up, didn't he?
Yeah. The boys also sent me some beers as well. The B in one running in a little Bang brewery. So yeah, liking what they're doing over there.
What sort of beer is it?
It is a hazy, it says a Run Bear hazy, so like a hazy pale ale. It goes down very
good.
nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
I've run in their top actually.
Oh yeah.
They, is it Ben?
Ben
Sent me a singlet after Roo Run. He come down and ran at Roo Run. Maybe it was third that day.
Yeah, he didn't just run; he ran really well.
He smoked you down there.
He smoked me big time.
Yeah,
made me look like I was on a treadmill when he passed me at about 4K.
But yeah, he shot me down a singlet, which is pretty cool. It's like a little bit classy. Blue, got a yellow stripe down it.
And I got moose.
Yeah, good material.
Baby blue, like the baby blue.
Yeah. Match your eyes.
Does bring blue out my eyes.
And
you like that,
gonna
Brady? That I know the colour of his eyes.
Yeah, you know the colour of his eyes, but he won't go for a run with you when he's in your hometown.
Oh, that is a stitch up, isn't it?
Any tourist comes to town, I'll take him for a lap. I've done it many a times. Give him a tour, talk about some sights. Croaks just gives you donuts. Love it. Anyway, Croaks, you got an interview to introduce Andy Blow, the Precision Fuel and Hydration CEO. Caught up with him a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, last week. So we had quite a few listener questions. Some of the questions from similar to what we discussed close to a year ago, but there's some new stuff in there. Yeah, he's always so easy to talk to, knows his stuff. It goes for about 50 minutes, I reckon.
Yeah, some good stuff in there. He's so good on the mic too, Andy, isn't he?
He is very good.
Very easy to listen to. All right, what are you doing between now and next week, Moose?
There's stuff on. I know there's stuff on. I just can't think of it. I'm doing some workouts, and then I'm going to do a long run.
Okay, good luck with that. Don't get carried away. Croaks, you're getting there. Cortisone potentially.
Well, that won't be till the following Tuesday, but yeah, go and get an ultrasound on the Friday. Hopefully, get a run in on my the one running apparel.
Good work.
But won't be running super long. Won't be doing workouts.
All right, and then there's nothing until I think Nationals a week after at Perth.
Yep.
So Jess Hull not doing that either.
I think isn't she?
She'd be doing this Grand Slam track, wouldn't she?
Oh yeah, actually, I just had it up before when the next meet was. Yeah, because they're pretty close together, aren't they?
Yeah. I listened to an interview. Jane Fleming did this interview on SEN the other day with Jared Waitley, and he asked her a question. I don't want to get it misquoted here, but it was about this is a golden era of Australian athletics, and she listed all the names but didn't mention Jess Hull. And I'm like, are they annoyed she's not at all these big meets, or is she just maybe she's just missed? She just had a blank and just not mentioned Jess Hull's name.
Just forgot her.
I think surely you've just forgotten her. It was we got this high jumper and we got the race walker and we got Gout and we got Cam Myers and Pete Bowl, and I'm like, Jess Hull. But she was also there to preview the meet, so I'm sure maybe that's the angle she was going.
But that's what's also we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. That's what's so good about the sport at the moment is that across the board we have legitimate world-class stars in multiple events, which is probably the first time in years you can say that.
Yep. Right, boys.
But Brady, just quickly with that Grand Slam meet. So the second one's the 2nd to the 4th of May. So that's a month. So maybe she does come back.
Okay. Yep.
Don't know.
We'll see. All right, over and out. Enjoy this chat with Andy Blow.
See you guys.
Yeah.
I'm joined this week by the co-founder and CEO of Precision Fuel and Hydration. He has a degree in sport and exercise science, was a former elite level triathlete, and has experience working with elite athletes, including those in Formula One racing. Welcome back to the Inside Running podcast, Andy Blow.
Hello, mate. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's I think we chatted July last year, and you just come back from Tour de France and I think Western States Ultra. So have you been up to the last few months? Traveling the world, all different events?
Yeah, we had a really busy end to the year, actually. We went out to Kona for the Ironman Worlds in October, and then backed that up with a trip to CIM, California International Marathon, in early December, which we're now a long-term partner of that amazing event. We bounced from there onto New Zealand for Taupo 70.3 World Championships, and then collapsed in a heap for Christmas and tried to recover from, I didn't know what time zone I was in at that point. So yeah, it's been busy.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving up some time. Like, the last episode we did was great. Like, the listeners got a lot from it, and we've sort of done the same thing. Just put a notice out to the listeners that we're having you on, and they've come back with a heap of questions. So I'm just going to, I guess, bombard you with these over the next 45 minutes or so.
Let's do it.
All right. So I guess a general one to start with, like, you know, you've worked with a lot of different athletes in different sports, and what are some of the most common mistakes you see, I suppose, runners make with their hydration and fueling, and how can they avoid them?
So I reckon for runners specifically, there's a big cultural thing about not wanting to eat a lot when you're running, because let's face it, most of us, I guess your average training run, even for a marathon runner, your average run is probably an hour or less, or at least around an hour. It's not a distance or a time period where you're going to need to eat and drink a lot. So we don't routinely practice eating and drinking on the run as a rule of thumb. Compare that with a triathlete or a cyclist who regularly goes out and rides their bike for 2, 3, 4 hours probably. You have to eat and drink when you're doing that, so you don't avoid it. And I think culturally for runners, when you move up from shorter distances to longer distances, incorporating some fueling and hydration into regular training sessions is something which can help you avoid the common mistake, which is not practicing this stuff. You know, for me, we were obviously chatting before we started recording. I'm up in my mileage at the moment, and my long run at the moment is still probably, very rarely is it longer than 90 minutes. But in contrast to what I would have done many years ago, I am taking a 500ml flask with me. I'm drinking half a litre of fluid, even in the winter in the UK during that run, and I'm taking a couple of gels because I want to make sure that, you know, I'm practicing my fueling for a marathon later in the year. And also I just find that it helps me recover better from those runs. So I would say that the not practicing fueling and hydration routinely is probably one of the biggest Achilles heels for runners.
Yeah. And come race day for marathons, like, one of the questions we had was, is there a correct mix of carb only gels versus caffeine gels?
Yeah, there is, but it's going to be individual to you a little bit. It's going to be based on a couple of things. First of all, there's a kind of binary question of, like, do you benefit from using caffeine or not? Most people probably do. Probably 2/3 of people do. Maybe there's a third, a quarter of people who really don't. And you probably know if you're one of those people already, because you're someone who doesn't tolerate coffee very well. You can't drink caffeine day to day. But if you're in the camp where you're going to get benefit from caffeine, you're looking at trying to get somewhere in the zone of 3 to 6 milligrams per kilo of body weight, basically. So I would say, looking at some examples of that, if you're on the somewhat on the smaller side, let's say you're a 60 kilo runner, and you're doing a sub 3 hour run, then to hit kind of the lower end of the recommendations, just to get above 3 milligrams per kilo, you're gonna basically take a couple of caffeine gels spread amongst your gels during the race. Now, if you're on the bigger side, if you're a 90 kg guy, you're going to take 3 caffeine gels to reach a similar level. So you've got to kind of tailor it to your body weight. And what a lot of people do with caffeine gels, which is not quite right, is they'll stack them towards the back end of the race, when in actual fact you're better off taking one immediately before the run and then 1 or 2 more during the earlier stages, because caffeine takes about 45 minutes to peak in your bloodstream. So as a ballpark figure, for most people it's going to be between 2, 3, maybe 4 if you want a lot of caffeine. So if you're someone who tolerates a higher amount, you might take as many as 4 during a marathon. But you're going to want to stack those towards the start of the race or in the earlier stages. There's not a lot of point in taking caffeine gels beyond 20 miles because the caffeine is not going to kick in till after the finish line.
Yeah. And when taking the gels, how long does it take? So not the caffeine part, but just a normal gel. How long does it take for the gel to be absorbed by the system and to start working?
So usually about 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, there or thereabouts. It will depend a little bit on how hard you're working and your hydration status and things like that. But when we've put continuous glucose monitors on, taken a gel and looked at how quickly you see a spike in your blood sugar, it's usually about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So somewhere around then.
And I reckon we may have covered this in the last episode, but I think it's good to talk about. So without someone doing the testing, what are sort of some ballpark figures for how many carbs, how much fluid, and how much sodium per hour for the marathon?
Yeah, if we start with carbs, then if you are an elite runner, if you're running very, very fast, if you're in the kind of 2-hour 30 or below bracket, then we're seeing a lot of athletes benefiting from being really quite high on their carb intake there because the rate of energy utilization is really high. So 90, potentially 90 plus grams an hour. We've started working with CJ Albertson, who you're probably familiar with. He's kind of a serial sub 210 guy. He's famous for back-to-backing loads of very fast marathons. And CJ has just been experimenting with 120 grams an hour, 110, 120 grams an hour, finds that really works for him. And that's not uncommon. So I think for very, very fast runners, upwards of 90 grams an hour, if you can tolerate it, is probably a good thing. I think as you progress down through the times, to slightly steadier times, basically that carbohydrate intake can start to fall away. I don't think we get much below 60 grams an hour, no matter how long you're out there. But, kind of if you're probably in the 230 to 330 range, maybe it's more like 75 to 90 grams an hour. If you're running a little bit slower than that, maybe it's 60 to 75 grams, or it's going down to 60 grams an hour. But I don't think there should be many people that are going through a marathon on less than 60 grams an hour.
Yeah. And I guess the fluids part of that question and the sodium's probably a bit more to do with the conditions that you're running in.
100%. Two things there, your conditions and your sweat rate. So as you know from previous conversations, I'm not a big fan of particularly of generic recommendations. But what I would say with marathon running is if you literally don't know where to start, probably something like half a litre an hour is a reasonable amount of fluid. Now, that you could be 3 times that in the heat. If it's really, really hot and humid, if you're a big person with a big sweat rate, you might be up at 1.5 litres an hour, but that would be relatively unusual. At the same time, we've seen successful marathon runners cruising by on 200 mils an hour if it's really cold and if they don't have a high sweat rate. I would say that that's like treading a fine line because you are risking a level of dehydration with that. So starting at 500 mils an hour and then kind of going up or down from that as your sweat rate and as the conditions dictate is not a bad ballpark. And then alongside that, the more fluid you're going to drink, the more likely it is that you're going to benefit from some electrolytes, because if it's hot and humid, you're drinking more, you're going to want to absorb and hold on to that fluid more easily with some electrolytes in it. And again, as a general sort of ballpark figure, 1,000 milligrams of sodium per litre is not bad for people who are sweating a bit more, and for people who are sweating a bit less, 500 milligrams per litre. Arguably of the 3 elements, carbs are probably the most important for most marathon runners most of the time. Fluid is important, and it gets more important the hotter it gets and the bigger your sweat rate gets. And then electrolytes start to come in for those people that are sweating more. They're not necessarily universally helpful for everyone all the time in marathons, but there's very little downside to taking them. And as your fluid intake goes up, your electrolyte intake should go up accordingly.
Yeah. And so for people that want to actually work out what their individual sweat rates are and their electrolyte loss, how do they sort of go about that?
The best way to do it scientifically is to get a sweat composition test, so get an actual sweat sodium test done. There's a bunch of places around the world that do the precision hydration test, and you can look those up on our website. There's other places that offer it as well, so you can look for that. And then alongside that, doing some sweat rate testing of your own in the conditions that you expect to run a marathon in are really useful. So you would go out, you'd weigh yourself ideally naked before you go and run. You then run, you account for how much fluid you drink, and you then weigh yourself afterwards and you see how much weight you've lost. And a kilo of weight loss equates to roughly a litre of fluid lost. And we've got a downloadable spreadsheet actually on our website. There's a blog all about how to measure your sweat rate. Really easy. You can bash the numbers in there. It'll work out your sweat rate per hour based on how many hours you ran for. And then that gives you an appreciation of how much you might be losing. And then there's no hard and fast rule as to what percentage of that loss you've got to replace. It's not usually 100%. It's usually less than that. You're usually looking to minimize your losses. And we tend to recommend that people try and finish a long run or a marathon within sort of 2 to 4% of body weight loss with dehydration. Some people might suffer at 4%. Other people might need to keep it close to 1 or 2%, but it's within that ballpark. And by measuring your sweat rate and your sweat output on a number of occasions, you kind of get a feel for what those numbers might look like. We did a whole bunch of that work with some marathoners in the build up to the Tokyo Olympics, where we knew it was going to be really hot and humid, for example. So I think it becomes more important if you know that the race you're going to do is going to be a hot one, that you understand what your losses might look like.
Yeah. And so what about electrolyte, like preloading electrolytes before a race? Is this common? How do you go about it? Who should do it? So I haven't heard, because obviously when we talk about electrolytes, often it's more about while you're out there exercising, replenish them. But do athletes out there or pro athletes, do they load, like carb load, the electrolyte load?
Yeah, I think carb loading is almost universally common now. It's not always done brilliantly, but I think the vast majority of athletes are carb loading. As I say, whether they're doing it exactly right or not is another question, but that's well established as being performance enhancing. I think preloading with electrolytes is less well researched, but it is researched, and there is a lot of evidence to suggest that it's a really good way of improving your performance, particularly if you're a big sweater or if it's going to be hot. I can speak from personal experience saying, as someone who is a big sweater, it's a really important part of what I do in the build up to a long run. It enables me to drink a little bit less overall, but hold on to the fluid better, because the point of preloading is you take a large dose of sodium. We usually recommend 1,500 milligrams per litre, not necessarily a full litre serving, but you take that relative concentration the night before the run and on the morning of the run, so that you're topping up your tanks, making sure that you're absorbing that fluid. It's being pulled into the bloodstream and held there, so you boost your blood plasma volume, and then that kind of gets you to the start line a little bit better hydrated than you otherwise would be if you just drank water. Yeah. The flip side to it is we often see athletes before a marathon, particularly if they're inexperienced, drinking loads and loads of water before, because they're aware they want to be well hydrated on the start line, and they presume that just drinking loads of water is the way to do it, and it's not, because you end up causing your kidneys to pee out a lot of liquid. You take electrolytes with that, and you end up almost in a worse state. So I think preloading, is it useful? Yes, it's probably useful for essentially almost everyone. There's arguably people with very low sweat rates, or people that just don't struggle with the hydration side of things at all, for whom it would be a marginal gain at best. But I think for a lot of people, again, on our website, there's a good blog about preloading, and it gives you a protocol to follow. I would say for most people, and especially if you're racing in warmer conditions, have a look at that and consider giving that a try. Any
negatives if you overdo the preload of electrolytes?
Yeah, you can definitely make yourself feel a bit sick, and you can even give yourself diarrhea if you do it too strong or take too much, which is why, although a lot of the scientific evidence has been around testing sodium concentrations of 3,000 milligrams per litre plus, we've found that is sort of playing with fire a little bit in terms of what it might do to your guts. So that's why we recommend 1500 as being a bit more of a balance of it's very strong. It's 3 times as strong as a regular sports drink, so it's giving you a lot of sodium, but it's not giving you so much that there's a high risk of GI distress. And it's certainly something you want to practice in training before long training runs, so that you make sure that you're not doing anything new that might upset your stomach on race day.
Yeah. And you said that often a mistake that people make in the lead up to the marathon is they just drink a heap of water and obviously like flush everything out. Like, is there a time when like sports drinks aren't necessary and like plain water is okay for certain runs? And I guess what are the factors that determine that?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the time for a lot of runners, like plain water is going to be the drink of choice. I think even though there's no secret about the fact I run a company that sells electrolyte drinks, but it's not. Electrolyte drinks are something which you need to use when you're sweating heavily for prolonged periods of time. They become extremely useful at that point, but you don't need to be smashing them the whole time. A lot of the time, I will probably take an electrolyte drink most of the time on those longer runs I was talking about, like 90 minutes. But for shorter runs, when I go to the pool first thing in the morning and do a 45-minute swim before work, I'll just have a bottle of water on the side, And so it is difficult to answer because, where you are in Australia in the middle of summer, if it's really hot, you might benefit from taking electrolyte drinks pretty frequently if you're training a lot, versus me in the UK in the winter. Maybe I barely need to use them at that point, at that time of the year. It's all about calibrating that usage against your total sweat losses and your total electrolyte losses. Supplementation is all about meeting a need that you're not otherwise meeting through your diet effectively. And I think for athletes that are training daily in hot and humid conditions, electrolyte drinks are a massive performance and recovery booster. For general people, most of the time, we've kind of been oversold them. There's a lot of companies out there that are pushing them really hard, and I think that's what leads to a bit of skepticism and confusion. It's kind of use them if you need them, if you're sweating a lot, and if you don't, water is absolutely adequate.
Yeah, I reckon one of the common things that people do over here is like, for me, for example, it's like on my long run, I'll take carbs on board, but often won't take as much fluid just from a logistics point of view. If I'm out in the bush, I generally don't run with a bottle or a flask. And so I'm more of the runner who finishes the run and then will smash an electrolyte afterwards, as opposed to actually doing it throughout the run. Is that just as effective compared to actually taking it on the run?
Yeah, I think it's a good strategy if that's what you're going to do. I'd argue that that was probably my old approach. These days, I've actually got some, because I didn't like carrying the bigger flasks, I've actually got myself some of the smaller, like 250ml flasks. And even though that's not a lot of liquid, I'll carry 1 or 2 of those and with electrolytes in them on a longer run. And I've tried to discipline myself to say, okay, I don't particularly like running with these in the side pocket of my shorts. I'd rather not. But at the same time, I'm feeling a bit more of a recovery benefit, and I'm probably finishing the runs in better shape as a result. But yeah, absolutely. If you find that your preferred MO is to like run and take some gels and drink afterwards, then drinking a strong electrolyte drink, there's plenty of science to show that you absorb more of that fluid, you hold on to it better, and you recover faster. So it's perfectly viable use. Plus, obviously, with those runs, you could do the preloading thing as well, and then maybe that's a good way of minimizing any problems from dehydration.
Yeah. And we've had one of the listeners that obviously has done a bit of like reading around the electrolytes and replacement of sodium, and they've just asked what research do you rely on for best practices around the timing of electrolytes and replacement of sodium? And they've said that they've seen some recent scientific literature, and one of the takeaways was that you may only need to replace sodium for events 3+ of over 3 hours.
Yeah. So our sports science team back at HQ are really diligent about keeping up with the latest research, and we're actually doing things like we're currently co-funding a PhD student at the University of Bedfordshire who's researching a lot of what he's doing his research into is sodium supplementation for much longer events and hotter events, when we know that it's more likely to be something that's effective. I would say in terms of having an arbitrary, like you need it after 3 hours, it's not really about electrolyte replenishment, and working out how much you need isn't about a time scale. It's about total fluid and sodium losses. And my guess is that that kind of recommendation comes through because for the average person, if you're running for 2 or 3 hours at an average sweat rate with average sodium losses, that's kind of the point at which you start to accumulate losses that you're going to need to supplement and replace. The reality is that we work with some people, and we're just putting a newsletter together out actually about a guy, fellow Aussie of yours, called Luke Henderson, who has an incredible high sweat rate. This guy will sweat 3 litres an hour, and he sweats out 2,200 milligrams of sodium per litre of sweat. So this is a heavy, salty sweater. And for Luke, he would be in a hole within 90 minutes to 2 hours if he didn't start replacing electrolytes and fluids, because that level of loss, happens. There's essentially like a threshold of loss that is going to occur based on your sweat rate and sweat sodium losses, which mean you need to start replacing things. Now, if your losses are really, really heavy, that might kick in after 90 minutes to 2 hours, whereas for someone else, it might not kick in until 4 or 5 hours. So 3 hours, I think directionally what that is saying, that recommendation, is that you don't need electrolytes after 20 minutes or 30 minutes, which is probably absolutely true. At the same time, I think putting like an arbitrary, you need them after 3 hours, but not before that, is too generic. So, and this is sometimes the problem with research, is that research often looks at averages and it looks at things in the middle of the curve. So it shows us trends, but the people that benefit from a more individualized understanding of the people on the edges of the curve, like me, I'm a heavy, salty sweater. If I followed the average recommendations, that's inadequate for me. And honestly, I don't really care what the average recommendations are when I look at it through my lens. I'm like, what does it matter to me? Yeah. And I think so I think it's not wholly incorrect what people are saying there, and there's something you can learn from it, but it's not as simple as like, you need electrolytes after 3 hours, but before 3 hours you don't. I think there's more nuance to it than that.
Yeah. A couple of interesting questions here. I never really thought about it, and there may not be an answer, but how does age affect hydration and fueling needs for runners?
Yeah, this is one that we've been asked about more and more over the years, actually. And I guess because, people are doing endurance sports, they're getting into endurance sports later in life, they're carrying on longer, which is fantastic. And so, and research has tended to be done on sort of late teenage to mid 20s college people, and so what do we know about it? Well, I think hydration wise, as you get older, hydration becomes more of a challenge because you tend to lose muscle mass, and inside your muscles is where a lot of the water is stored in your body. So your kind of total body water stores are a little bit lower when you're older. So that's a challenge, because it means maybe your reservoir of fluid that you can later sweat out is reduced. Your kidneys become a little bit less efficient, so you tend to pee more and lose more fluid through that route. And also your thirst signals tend to get diminished. So older people often get a diminished sense of thirst. You put all of those things together, and it means that I think older athletes probably need to be more mindful and more proactive about their hydration than younger athletes can get away with. So we typically see the stronger electrolyte drinks and more of a set regime of drinking being beneficial for older athletes rather than necessarily for younger athletes. We actually wrote a blog about that topic as well that people can find on our Knowledge Hub on the website if they want a deeper dive into that. I think on the energy side and the carbohydrate side, again, I haven't seen as much research on it into older people, but I think if older people are trying to really eke out the maximum performance, they've got less margin for error with that kind of thing. So being more diligent about their fueling, making sure that they're pre-fueling well, they're carb loading, and they're following an intake regime of carbohydrates is just another way of making sure that their performance doesn't drop off. So maybe not as specifically different to young people as hydration, but equally important. And I think culturally, we're definitely seeing that if you were an active competitive athlete in the 80s and you're now still competing as an age grouper in the 2020s, then what we knew about fueling back then and the attitude to fueling back then was very sort of different to what it is now. So I think there's this big like cultural shift of, my wife's dad was a really top bike racer back in there, like semi-pro bike racer. And even now I can tell he finds it really hard to consider the idea of like eating gels and drinking much on the bike, because back in the old days they just used to tough it out.
Yeah.
And he feels like it's soft. And I don't think he's alone in that. So it's same with old school marathon runners. They used to all do it on a banana and a glass of water. And it's sort of like, well, yeah, we used to, and it's possible, but it's not optimal. So I guess with older athletes, maybe some of it is kind of like getting them to accept that there's a more modern way of doing things, and that involves fueling with carbs.
Well, I was even doing that back in like 2017, like the old school approach where it's like before a long run, I'd get up, wouldn't even have like milk or sugar in my coffee. It would be black, and I'd have some amino acids or whatever, and I'd go out for my 2.5 hour run because I was trying to do it fasted. And that was in 2017, so not that long ago. And it's really changed a lot in the last 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's much more part of the conversation, isn't it? And I think we're all learning that. I mean, I'm in this game professionally, but it's absolutely only been in recent years that I've been fueling my longer runs what I would now realise is probably adequately. Yeah. I was doing exactly what you were doing not that long ago, trying to run fasted and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And so a lot of the older athletes are probably smashing a lot more caffeine in their lives just to get through work and family life. What impact does caffeine have then on hydration and electrolyte balance?
So generally speaking, caffeine is a diuretic. Most people know that. It means it makes your kidneys produce more urine, so you tend to pee more. There's been a lot of research to sort of debunk the idea that drinking coffee dehydrates you per se. So, you're obviously, when you drink a cup of coffee, you consume a reasonable amount of water in that, a large amount of water, in fact. So even if it makes you pee a bit more, overall, the theory is the net fluid balance is like at least equal, if not you're retaining more fluid. So I think perhaps in the past, the role of caffeine in dehydration was overplayed. Sort of contradicting that, though, I would say personally for me, I find it a challenge. If I drink more than 2 or 3 cups of coffee in a day, that tends to sort of start to spiral me towards feeling a bit lousy, particularly because I'm peeing a lot more and losing a lot more fluid and possibly electrolytes. Because when you pee, you can't just pee out plain water. You do, even if your body's trying to conserve some electrolytes, you inevitably lose some. So I think everyone needs to find their tolerance level of what they can absorb. I'm always fascinated by my dad, who is in his 70s, and for pretty much his whole adult life, all I've seen him drink is tea. He just drinks tea, caffeinated tea, and that appears to largely do the job for him. And we all know people who have this like incredible. We have people in the office who I can easily see smash 6 or 7 cups of coffee in a day. For me, I just know that is going to make me feel terrible. But I get a lot of benefit and enjoyment from drinking 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day. So you I guess you find your level with that. It's common for people, I think, these days to limit caffeine intake to the morning if you're sensitive to it. And, I think that's a good thing, both from a hydration and a stimulation point of view. But ultimately, I think you got to recognize that caffeine isn't going to help your hydration status. How much it hinders it might depend on your body and how much you take. But what you've probably got to do is do a little bit of trial and error to find out what level actually works for you.
Yeah. And is there any sort of science when it comes to like hydration and fueling and its impact on improving sleep?
Well, I know for sure that when I was in very, very heavy training, and I've spoken to other athletes and read some research about this, that if you're going to bed carbohydrate depleted because you've trained hard and haven't sufficiently replaced and eaten enough carbs, then that can really affect your sleep quality. So I used to find when I was in really heavy training, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to go to bed early and get up at 11, 12 o'clock at night and have to have a bowl of cereal or a banana or something like that. And then that would enable me to go back to sleep. I think it was to do with serotonin release in the brain, and you struggle to sleep if you're inadequately fueled. I think this, to a certain extent, hydration, good day-to-day hydration is just all part of the mix. Like, no one's going to sleep well if you're horribly dehydrated. And I think, just maintaining a good regime around your hydration is part of what an athlete should be doing to stay healthy and maintain their performance. I'm not aware particularly of any research on hydration, its effects on sleep. What I would say is that when we've worked with athletes that sweat a lot and are in heavy training and are trying to maintain good fluid balance, if they overdrink, you can get the opposite effect where you end up having to get up in the night too many times to pee, and then that's disruptive to your sleep. So I think finding that balance. But I think adequately fueling, especially if you're someone who trains late in the day, like, that's a challenge, like making sure that you fuel before, during and after a hard training session in the evening to maintain sleep quality is probably a really important consideration.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've had the same thing where if I've trained late at night, often then, especially if it's hot, you then don't feel like eating, and then you go to sleep. One, you probably can't sleep that well because you're still a bit amped from the session. But then when you do fall asleep, you wake up just hungry because you haven't had enough after training.
Definitely the knock-on effect the next day. And maybe the way to combat that is to fuel a bit more before that session and even during that session, because like you say, I think if it is hot and you've trained hard, best will in the world, no one wants to eat after that. Either that, or you've got to find something that you can tolerate, like a smoothie or something that's simple and digestible. Make sure it's pre-prepared and just force it down yourself afterwards, if that's what you need.
Yeah. We did have a question, or a couple of questions come in. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was around the relationship between, I think it's like, is it glucose and fructose and the ratio in the gels? Can you talk a little bit about that and, I guess what each of those do and the, like, why you have a certain ratio in a gel?
Yeah, well, it used to be thought that glucose was the main fuel that you should take into power exercise, because it was the simplest way to get energy into your bloodstream that could then immediately be used by the muscles, because glucose is what the body and the brain runs on for. Your brain runs on it for thinking and, well, for all its activity, and your muscles run on it for energy production. And it either comes from endogenous stores of carbohydrates, so glycogen in your muscles, or it comes from exogenous forms, which is the glucose that you eat or drink when you're exercising. A lot of the early research suggested you could take 60 grams an hour or thereabouts, and that's what you could hope to absorb, which is why the early recommendations were fueling with 60 grams of glucose per hour. Then in the early 2000s, a lot of really innovative research looked at combining glucose and fructose, because although fructose requires a bit of additional processing in the body by the liver to make it usable by the muscles in energy terms, if you have some glucose as well as fructose in, say, an energy gel or a drink, you've got different pathways for that to be absorbed through the gut. So you can absorb more, which is where the original 90 grams an hour kind of came from, because it was like 2-to-1 glucose fructose, 2 parts glucose, 1 part fructose. Take those in together and you can all of a sudden assimilate 90 grams of carbs an hour. People have then since proved, I think, by trial and error, that you can actually absorb more than that. We're often seeing 100, 120 grams, as we talked about before, with elite athletes. But there's now a little bit of fiddling around going on with 1 to 0.8 ratios, or even 1-to-1 ratios, with this idea that by increasing the level of fructose in relation to glucose, maybe you can absorb even more. The science isn't well established on that yet. There's some indications that it might be beneficial if you're taking really high amounts of carbs to increase the fructose ratio, but I think some sports nutrition companies are jumping on that, because any sort of inference that we can offer a new exciting ratio, is really important, for sales. People will go for it, but at the end of the day, I think that's kind of marginal gains rather than real gains.
Yeah. So speaking of like innovation and your industry, like where's it heading? What's the next new thing? Like, do you have any new products that are going to be on the market shortly?
Yeah, we have actually got a pretty cool new product coming out soon. You'll be familiar with our energy chews, little 30 gram. Well, they're actually 2 15-gram blocks in a little packet. For the Tour de France last year, we developed a 60-gram chew bar for the Lotto cycling team, and they could not get enough of it. It was like a really, really popular product. I think partly because you can get 60 grams of carbs into a bar that weighs just over 60 grams. So it's, in terms of carb to weight ratio, it's incredibly efficient, because an energy gel weighs just over 50 grams and gives you 30 grams of carbs. A chew bar weighs just over 60 grams and gives you 60 grams of carbs. So that's coming out very soon, and is, I think, going to be a fantastic product for actually ultra runners as well. I wouldn't say, I've been using it on my long, steady training runs, because again, it's easy to carry 2 of those, and that's the equivalent of carrying 3 energy gels, basically, in terms of carbs, but in much less space and weight. So I can see runners using it quite a lot for pre-exercise, during longer, steadier sessions, or during ultras. Some people might use it for marathons and stuff as well. I think less at the sharp end, but maybe more in the middle of the pack. So that's coming out very soon, and we're pretty excited about that, because that's that's a cool new product for us. I think across the industry, you're going to see a lot of people fiddling around with this glucose fructose ratio, and I think that whilst there might be some niche edge cases where it's potentially helpful in a small way, i.e. for very elite athletes taking very high amounts of carbs who are trying to find ways to squeeze a little bit more in, maybe that's something. It'll be marketed to the masses as like the next big thing, which I don't believe it is. This isn't like carbon plated running shoes. It's not going to help us all take 5 seconds of K off. So, but that's what the industry does. Our industry, unfortunately, just kind of overhypes marginal gains the whole time. I think what I'm interested in the future, and I've been talking to a number of people about this, is, we were just talking before about this, like not carrying bottles on a long run because it's inconvenient and not taking enough fuel. And I'm actually experimenting with a lot of different running shorts, and there's some great new apparel coming out for ultra running, which I think filters down to marathon, where you can carry soft flasks or bottles in your shorts rather than having to get extra belts and things like that, and you can carry enough gels. And I think with clever design, apparel can be improved massively to work with sports nutrition, because if you know what you need to take in a marathon, I'm doing all of this because I'm curious. Although I'm running in a marathon which has got fantastic aid stations, I want to use the minimum amount of them I can, because there's a risk and there's a performance detriment to slowing down, seeing if you can get what you get. You hit an aid station in a busy period of time during the race, you might not get what you want. And I would much prefer to run with the majority of what I need on my person for a marathon. And so I'm kind of interested in that crossover between apparel and sports nutrition, because I think there's some big improvements that can be made there. The same goes for packaging, because I think we're working with our manufacturing partners to look at packaging, not only to be more sustainable and environmentally friendly, but also to be more functional, because eating a gel still requires ripping the top off what is like a little tomato sauce packet and squeezing it into your mouth. There might be a better way of designing that packet or dosing a gel. We've got our flow gel, which you can put into a flask, for example, which then is sort of environmentally better because you use less packaging, and also maybe it's easier to to eat and carry that gel on the move. So I think there's room for a lot of innovation there, and I would really like to be heavily involved in that, because I'm finding that for me as an athlete, that's trying to do longer distance runs. That's a big thing that we need to sort out.
Yeah. And speaking of the next big thing, we had heaps of people write in asking about bicarb and whether you guys will actually be, bringing something out, because I don't know if it's the same over there, but there's been a lot of hype recently about distance runners taking bicarb. Whereas we were chatting off air that, like, I knew about bicarb back when I was a middle distance runner. It was predominantly like 800 meter runners just having their own sort of concoction of it and hoping that they were on the start line, not on the toilet. What do you know about bicarb for distance runners, and will you likely get into the market for that?
Yeah, so I mean, your experience with bicarb many years ago was on point, really. It was proven to be potentially beneficial for middle distance runners, for anyone doing high intensity, high lactate efforts, because it helps the body to buffer the lactate that's produced when you're exercising anaerobically. And so middle distance running was one of the obvious places where that could be most beneficial, because if you're sprinting 100 meters, you're not producing enough lactate for it to be meaningful. And if you're running a marathon at a steady state, then you're also not, it's more aerobic metabolism, so you're not sort of benefiting from it. But in the middle there, running 800 meters, 1500 meters is the sweet spot really for where that kind of buffering might help. We've seen it crossing over with other sports like pro cycling, where they'll microdose and take bicarb during a race because of the explosive nature of some of the efforts. So although pro cycling is predominantly an aerobic sport, there's all of the interesting stuff and all of the race defining stuff happens with the anaerobic bursts of effort. Normally it's usually like savage attacks followed by sustained high power outputs that then break the field up. And so I can see the utility in professional cyclists using it. We're not considering at the moment entering the fray with all of that, because I think a lot of our it's fairly, I think the application for bicarb is fairly niche. Again, I think it's one of those things that there's definitely solid science to suggest that in the right circumstances it can work, but it's unlikely to be beneficial to the vast majority of runners, certainly not long distance endurance runners whose efforts are predominantly aerobic and steady state. So I think it's interesting that some companies have really pushed it as if they're pushing it to the masses, because that then stimulates conversation around it and gets people interested. But honestly, I feel like it's another one of those things that's a little bit oversold. I hesitate to say it's not a waste of time. For the right applications, it can be a powerful performance enhancer, but that is within a niche, not within what most of us are doing most of the time.
Also had a question here about whether you'll look to add any sodium to your gels. I know last time we had you on, you were a big believer in keeping the carbs and the electrolytes separate. I think the reason why these people have written in is if they're out racing and they don't have access to their bottles on course, how do they get their electrolytes in if they're not having them in a gel? Yeah,
still a point of contention in our office, really. There's a simplicity and a cleanliness in doing it the way that we do it at the moment, which is you get your carbs from a gel and you get your electrolytes from a bottle or whatever else, and that way you can dial up or dial down the different variables independently. And I think going forward, that is going to continue to be our preferred option. We're not working on an electrolyte gel at the moment, but at the same time, I can understand, and we do get asked that question enough for us to look at it and consider that question, because I can see a use for a gel with electrolytes in it. There's certainly the ability to take 2 or 3 of those on a run and just carry a bottle of water or pick some water up would be useful. The middle ground, which we do offer at the moment, is obviously you could use the gels with electrolyte capsules. And I've seen that a lot. And actually one of the things that I'm thinking of doing for my marathon is using gels with a couple of electrolyte capsules just taped to them, just using some masking tape to make sure that I've got, and I can just pick up water if I need to, for example, then. So I think there is a middle ground. It's not quite as elegant as having it in there, but what it does also do is it means you can still fine tune that amount of electrolyte. Because the difference, the question would be, how much electrolyte do we put in a gel? Because people will use somewhere between 1 and 4 gels an hour. So if you put a small amount of sodium in, because you predict someone's going to use 4 of them, and let's say you put 200 milligrams in, and that gives you 800 milligrams of sodium in an hour. That's relatively heavy duty if you don't need a lot of electrolytes. At the same time, if you're only having 1 gel and we've put 200 milligrams of sodium in it, it's really a tiny amount. Go the other way though, if we put 500 milligrams of sodium in a gel, and then suddenly someone's taking 4 of them an hour, that's 2,000 milligrams, which is going to be way too high for most people. So you'd almost have to produce so many different variants if you wanted to cover the full spectrum, that it would cause, like a lot of confusion and a bit of an inventory headache. So I don't know if we'll ever go there or not. It's a conversation though that doesn't like completely get shut down. It's just that it's not on our priority list at the moment.
Yeah. And last question for me, and it's not really a sports science or nutrition question. It's more of a business question. I noticed, I think it was maybe last week or the week before, Izzy Bat-Doyle, who's our Australian half marathon record holder, she put up a post that she'd officially, she's going to be an official ambassador of Precision Fuel and Hydration. And we often talk about on the podcast, a lot of pro athletes aren't great on social media. And so from a company's point of view, they get more bang for their buck by promoting or signing influencers, because, so how do you decide who you sign? And do you see better value for you by signing pro athletes versus influencers?
It's a really good and topical question for us, as a business. But I would say where it starts from, and Izzy is a great example, is it the athletes or the influencers that we work with always start from the basis of, are they authentic product advocates or advocates for our brand and what we do? And the story with Izzy really is that she reached out to Jack, who runs our business to business sort of operations, through her running store, or the running store she's associated with, and was using the products herself and really liked them. And so we started a conversation on the basis that this is someone who's performing at a really high level, who's actually just genuinely stoked to be using our products. And then we offered her some support from our sports science team. She lapped that up and got on really well. And then over time that becomes kind of a mutually beneficial endorsement deal. We sign these people as pro athletes and put them out there. We then obviously the if you like, the commercial value of that partnership is based on a number of things, one of which is that athlete's presence on social media these days. I would say that there are some athletes who are performing at such a high level that, and they probably are doing something on social, but even if they're not, the association with a level of performance is really, really powerful for a brand, and it's really important. But those athletes are few and far between. The majority of athletes that are even performing at a very high level need to be sort of like working an angle in order to create more PR, press, positive press, intrigue. And then there's the responsibility of the brand. Like you saw the announcement that we made on our channels with Izzy, and that's a lot of work goes into that. We've got graphic designers doing stuff. We've got interviews being conducted with her. We're kind of packaging up her image and putting it out there with our brand. But I think the most important thing for us is that it's authentic, because I genuinely believe that if we gather up over the years authentic ambassadors who are really using the products and using our advice and our sports science team for help, then overall the general effect of that is you've got a lot of people in the marketplace who are talking positively about what we do. You can definitely, if you're clever and if you get lucky, I do believe you can probably shortcut some of this stuff with spending money on the right, say, influencers who've got a big following. There's always someone new popping up, a minor celebrity who's running a marathon and then they need some gels, and then but those kind of things are all, they can be really beneficial, but they can be really risky as well, and they can be quite short term. We've not to this point really chased those kind of short term bumps in sales. We're building a business for the long run. So authenticity and gathering people along the way who really love what we do is a big part of it. And so I think it's a different approach to what some businesses are doing. And I certainly can't sit here and deny the fact that we sit in marketing meetings and talk about influencers and talk about the kind of people. But quite often, even then, what we're looking for is people who we often see our gels, say, pop up on some influencers' Instagram if they're doing some running. Then we'll kind of look at their back catalogue and we'll consider, does this person feel like a good brand fit? And maybe then we'd reach out to them. Yeah. I don't see us, and we typically haven't reached out to ambassadors or athletes completely cold, because that is setting yourself up for a very transactional relationship. And quite often that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, great answer. And thank you for your honesty. So, we've been going for close to an hour. I know you're a super busy man. Appreciate you giving up some time, and brilliant as always. Hopefully we can catch up later in the year. Any plans on coming to Australia in the next 12 months?
I hope so. I haven't got anything slated in yet, but I haven't managed to get over this year. Johnny, my business partner, was over earlier in the year, enjoying life in Noosa and on the Gold Coast. So I kind of feel like I need to cash in my trip this year. I know that you're running Valencia as well later in the year. So if you get an opportunity to come through the UK when you're that close, then we've got a new performance centre, sports science lab, heat chamber and all that kind of stuff at our HQ in Dorset, so it'd be great to actually see if we can get you over and come and meet the team.
Great, no, that'd be awesome. And thanks again. All the best with your prep for CIM later in the year.
Yeah, I'll check in with you later. Thanks, mate.
Andy. Bye.
Bye.
Want to make your next race day the best one yet? Well, dialing in your nutrition strategy is one of the most effective ways you can do that. Luckily, our show sponsor, Precision Fuel and Hydration, offers you the chance to do this in the most effective way possible. Book a free consultation with their team to fine-tune your fueling plans. Emphasis here on you, as they offer tailored advice based on your circumstances and the race you're taking on. They're there to help you achieve your goals all year long, and as mentioned, this service is free of charge and a great opportunity to ask them any questions you may have about fueling and hydrating for your race. No question is too daft for them. We've loved Precision for a long while, and this free service is another reason why. Use the link in the show notes and use code IR-SPRING2025 for 15% off your first order and start smashing those goals today.